Right. Yeah. Right. We are live on YouTube now. So yeah. So we are live. I'll double check that on the old streaming. Yeah, we are. Hello to our YouTube viewers. We'll be getting started in just literally.
Hello, YouTube.
Hello, YouTube. Hello, Wembley. Or whatever you call it. So, yes, we are live.
I one of my stickers, so I'm going to stick it on the t-shirt, make it look like I've got
a... Yeah.
That's a good idea, actually.
Advertising.
Well, I actually got a hole in my t-shirt, but anyway. It's got some sort of Oriental writing on it, which I have no idea what it means. But
that could be dangerous. That could say anything, couldn't it?
It could say anything, but to be fair, it's got a massive hole for it, so that's why I'm wearing it indoors.
I've got my dinner on mine as well.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, great.
That's normally a trick I pull off, but I wasn't wearing this top when I was having my dinner. I had a different one on. But...
Good luck.
Oh, dear.
Just in case. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. Right. Oh, let's start coming on. Well, hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Grassroots Football Show here on East London Radio. It is just gone 7 p.m. on Thursday, the 3rd of August, 2023. We're delighted you can be here with us this evening for episode 2 of season 9. We've got a great show lined up for you this evening. Pete's here. Evening, Pete. How are you?
Hello, all. Hello, Adam. Hello. How are you doing? All good?
I'm doing good. Thanks very much. Busy week for you, which we'll come on to obviously in the second part of the program.
Has been quite busy, yes. But it's been fun.
Yes. So. Yeah, but it's been chaos, isn't it? But we'll come on to that later in the show. Ian's here as well. Evening, Ian.
Evening. All good.
Yep. All good. Had a good week yourself?
Yeah, not bad at all, mate.
Good. Okay, well, we've got 2 guests this evening. Our second guest will be our local football enthusiast and videographer, Ashley Hanson, will be joining us to discuss the week's action and preview the FA Cup this weekend. But first of all, we're going to have a discussion on programmes. And I'm really, really delighted to be joined by Chris, who runs the Twitter page at Non-League Progs. He also runs the Saints FC Progs account on Twitter, but as a Portsmouth fan, I won't hold that against him. But welcome along, Chris. Thank you very much for being here.
No, thanks, Adam and Peter and Ian, and good evening, everyone. It's good to be here.
Excellent.
Good to have you on.
Excellent. And obviously, we're going to be discussing all things match day programmes as well in a second. Before we do quickly do that, I must quickly mention, as you may have seen on Twitter or X or whatever it's called this week, we are running a poll for our results of midweek. Now, last weekend we had a result of the weekend, and you picked Athletic Newham's 3-0 win over Tilbury as our region's result of the weekend. This week we're doing a result of midweek. It's 4 games, 2 each from the ESL and the Furlong and South. And the poll is open until 9 p.m. So for those on YouTube, let's just have a quick look to see what it's looking so far. So we've picked 4 games there: Holbridge versus Saffron Walden, West Essex versus Athletic Newham, Clapton versus Brittany Down, and Hackney Wick versus Burnham. I may add the reason we picked that is because Hackney Wick were 2-0 up at half time, and Burnham came back late on to win that 3-2. So by all means, get voting, and we'll announce the winner with Pete and Ashley at 9 o'clock. But on to the main reason we're here with Chris. Chris, thanks very much, obviously, for being here. So just quickly, just tell us what you do with regards to campaigning for programmes and your ethos and that.
Yeah, sure. I don't normally use the word campaigning, because what I try and do is just be positive about clubs who are going to the effort of putting together a printed programme. So we'll get into all the details about why some clubs do, some clubs don't. And I know how tough it is for non-league clubs. I know how cash-strapped they are, needing new volunteers all the time. So my site and my kind of ethos is not about bashing clubs who don't do them. I like to just be positive and promote clubs that are doing them. because I know that a lot of effort goes into it. It's a labour of love. It does have some costs, and so I just do my bit to help clubs who do printed programs to push them. And then you kind of think after a while, that positive vibe and seeing, even this weekend, 4 or 5 different sellouts, you sort of think hopefully those that are not doing printed programs might sort of see a bit of that positivity, see that it is possible to make a few quid or at least break even, and that might then just begin to kind of get things going again. So yeah, that's what the ethos is. But yeah, very much trying to big up non-league, and in this case it's through the printed program.
Okay. So this is a question for both of you, really. Why, in your opinion, do you think they are so important to a match day routine?
I'll take one first. So to be honest, I'll go a bit big picture first. So for me, I talk about it being an intrinsic part of the match day experience. And kind of what I mean by that is that it's more of a heart thing than just a simple cash equation. Do we do one? Do we not do one? There's certain things, maybe I'm like a legacy fan, but there's certain things like people having Bovril or tall floodlights or standing in the same spot, meeting your mates in the same pub. There's certain things and routines about football that make football what it is. And you realise when you haven't got those things that actually you're missing something. And so for the printed program, I just think for many of us, having a printed program is part of our match day experience. And whilst we understand all of the COVID environmental issues, younger people not buying them, rising costs, online alternatives, whilst we understand all that, we're saying that if you actively sell them, decent print runs, get a bit of sponsorship, you don't have to produce an 80-page magazine. If you're kind of realistic about it, you can put together a decent 24-pager, and if 10% of your audience buy it and you break even, then you've provided a great service to those people. So I don't think it's just a money maker. I kind of think it's more of a like a heart thing. There's a couple of good Twitter sites that really show a lot of that, the fundamentals of football kind of thing, not the match results and scoreline. And I think that's what I buy into.
Pete?
Well, I mean, it's for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people like to collect programs, and also it's kind of a memento of the day, like a part of, as Chris said, part of the atmosphere. I mean, I used to before blogging was a thing, or like online, because I mean, obviously growing up, online thing as a kid, online wasn't really an option, it didn't really exist. So I used to get a program every game I went to, and I'd keep a program and like a little match report in a folder and it was part of it, and it was just like a memento or something to remember the game by. Which obviously nowadays a lot of people record everything online or on apps on their phones, or so the program is quite fair. I think it's fairly unique to this country, because a lot of European countries I know of don't even produce programs, and never really did. I know in Norway they don't really have batch programs as such. So it's kind of it's a traditional thing in this country. As I was growing up as a boy, first watching football, it was part of the experience to buy a program, and you get all the information in the game, and because I said back then you couldn't really look it up online or on phones or anything. You had the program, and that pretty much was how you got information on the game you were going to see. And obviously other games, like some programs would have sort of information on the leagues that you were watching as well. So it was very much an information purpose thing as well as anything else. So
definitely. Oh, it was. I mean, same for me growing up. And Chris actually took the words right out of my mouth in a way, because I was going to say the program is integral, as integral to a match day experience as the Bovril on a Tuesday night. It's just brilliant. I remember I've got back at home, I've got so many programs from years gone by, from Portsmouth, Arsenal, obviously my journeys in non-league as well, So yeah, it's really, really important, and I think it's something. I hate to say it's a dying trade because I don't want it to be a dying trade, but it's something that's, like you said, Pete, is unique about not only the English game but the British game as a whole. And when you ask someone about a match day program, the first country you would think of is the UK, because we produce so many, and they're so brilliant to read. Different clubs as well. So yeah. Chris, have you got any favourite programs in particular that has always stood out for you over the years?
Yeah, get asked this a little bit. Sometimes I used to say, well, the last game I went to is my favourite because they did one, and I'm so chuffed. I'm not one that's so picky about it, making sure it's amazing. If someone's gone to the effort of making one, then I'm really pleased. So just for the YouTube stuff, I've got last game I went to with a programme was Totton. They do a good programme, double edition against Aldershot. So was happy with that. So my last programme is my favourite, but I grabbed a couple, just was primed for this question. Just managed to find one, Southampton boys against Walthamstow boys from, what are we talking there? 1957.
Wow.
So there's a little bit of a link between, I lived in Essex for 10 years. And so I got some good links with the Essex area and East London, but then I've been living down here in Southampton for 20 odd years as well. So yeah, for me, this is good because this is the old school program. For those not watching on YouTube, it's one of those 4 pages, A4 folded in half, like nice motif at the top that obviously Adam won't resonate quite so much with. And then your teams, and I'm thankfully too young, but you could imagine someone a couple of years older looking at these names and going, well, hang on, I remember his uncle, or I used to play in that team, or I went to that school. And so this is what sometimes people think, that you want like 80 pages of a magazine, and really this is A4 folded in half, all the salient details on the front, and in this case a classic example, so I quite like that. Other ones I grabbed was just a 1962 Poole Town used to do a cracking kind of, again, that was A4 folded into 3. Again, talk about clubs with printing costs. This is one piece of A4 paper folded into 3-fold, and you get therefore 6 panels. And so that's plenty of space for your front cover, your league tables, your manager's message.
And in colour as well, in the 60s as well. That's impressive.
I know, amazing. I'll for those not watching, I'll tweet the pictures that I'm holding up now so you can see them. And then I just grabbed a couple of like recent Hampshire League ones, kind of like 80s type time. They were sort of a styly, again, always A5. I think we love our A5 as pro collectors, but just some sort of classic styles. There's this this isn't an example, but there's this sideburn bob, there's this clip art that seemed to be used in the 80s a lot.
Yeah.
And it's like a guy midfield tussle with another guy, and many of the followers of non-league progs have given them a name each, and now they've reappeared on more modern day programs. And I love that. That's from the old clip art in the old days, and then new younger like graphic designers are weaving that in. So yeah, I love a bit of sideburn bob, as we call him as well. So yeah. Final one, just one of my favorites, is just that thankfully, because of non-league progs, I see where people are, and every now and again I cheekily say, hey, you wouldn't grab me one, would you? And here's a guy, Christopher, who's called as well, like me, and he went to the women's under-17 championships in Estonia. So you can imagine there weren't too many of these around.
No,
it's A5 shiny, they've gone to town, but I sort of say to myself, there's not too many of those around. So I kind of like little bits and pieces like that, really. Yeah.
Have you got a favourite programme of all time? Like, if there's one programme that has stood out more than any other, whether that's in non-league, with Saints, with whoever?
Yeah, I guess it's got to be my first. So my team is Southampton, apologies and all that. You can't choose, can you? So my team is Southampton. So the first game I went to, I was 8 years old, and home to Aston Villa. We had John Fashanu on loan, one of the Fashionus, and he scored in a 1-0 win. And I've got the programme, it's framed, I'm waiting to put it in my new man cave. So the programme is the programme, but as I look at the cover, it's the era, it's the sponsor, it's the pictures of the players. So I guess my first Saints home game would probably be my favourite. And as I say, apart from that, I'm just thankful for any club that produces one anytime, really.
Pete, have you got a favourite programme that do you remember from like from when you was growing up, going watch Norwich games and that?
I'm not as organised as Chris. No, I mean, I just before I say that, you see, holding up all these programs you've got, you could not have done that if it was all online back then. You wouldn't have a memory. You wouldn't have a. That's the thing about them. Is I mean, I'll wholly admit I don't actually buy programs anymore. Well, it's not a good show to be on to say that, but I'm not saying I should. I'm not saying that I don't like them. I just don't collect them anymore. I used to collect them when I was younger. I had drawers full of programs from all the games I used to go to, and I'd regularly go in the drawers and pick them out and read them back. And yeah, I'd loads of Norwich ones, obviously, when I was seasons of older there 20 years ago. Obviously, and of course, my dad used to was a program editor at Whitman Town for 6 years. And I used to help him regularly. He would do. You see, that was, I'd say, the amount of work that goes into producing a program as well. It certainly opened my eyes. He would do everything on his computer. We'd print it all out. We'd take it to the club. We'd collate it all. Me and him would collate it in one of the rooms at the club, and then they'd have all the programs ready for that game. So I always liked the Whitman programs, but that was more nostalgic really because my dad made it. And I helped make a program, so it was great. I used to type up, I used to edit the match reports and stuff on the PC at the club, and then print it out and put that in the program. So definitely the Whitman Town programs in the late 90s, early 2000s, because obviously we made them. So they were quite it's a nostalgic thing. Obviously, my dad not being around anymore, it's even more poignant. But
and I think you're right. You're right about the whole. You pick up a program and there you are. You're back in there in your mind.
Yeah.
Whether it's a family member or friends or the actual score, a crazy score line. We'll come on to the online stuff, but even if a program does go online, you can imagine within 2-3 years the server changes, they change the website platform and the whole error 404. So what will happen for historians looking for kind of first-hand reports, and where will they go for that information? There's something about the program just being a historical document that I know a few people who follow on non-league progs, they're messaging me saying, have you got that? I tweet the cover and they say, can you go to the results section? What was the attendance, or who was the referee? That linesman, that linesman, that was my dad's best mate. You will lose that if we don't keep these, definitely.
I actually got an email today. It was from a program collector in Wales, actually asking if I could post him one of Walthamstow's programs from this season. And it was ironic that it come today of all days when we're doing this program. But I just thought that's what's great. You get people that want to contact you because they want to read your content. And I must say, Walthamstow producer, we were talking about earlier, Chris, and I know Pete, you've seen a couple of them as well. Walthamstow and Jay does a fantastic program, and obviously, Chris, we'll talk about the covers that he does. It makes you want to read it, and it's fantastic content as well. So big up Anjay, and I don't care if that sounds biased. He does a fantastic program.
No, and that's part of what I'm trying to do really, is to, I don't know, with these editors, they never make themselves front page news, obviously. So some of them might have a little column, but basically they're kind of serving behind the scenes. I don't know where I get the feeling that some of them are like introverts like me. They're not necessarily the ones wanting to be at the front, but they're like you say, working so hard. And I've produced a few programs over the years, and never every other week though, and it took me ages, and I was changing it for weeks and weeks and weeks because I did some one-off ones. So these people who are producing Saturday, Tuesday, and then a gap, and then another one Saturday, and they're always relying on, the manager hasn't sent me this yet, and that person hasn't told me. They're absolute stars, and they're doing it for no money at all. So as you say, absolutely, we should read it. We should take it to your local doctor's surgery so that others can read it, and put it in the library and send it to your mates, because they're little works of art really. And some of course quality of different skills and stuff, but whether it's Walthamstow, I think Sheringham up in the old Thurlow Nuns, they're doing some amazing covers, and I like that. We'll probably get onto it, but there's a lot of youngsters with some great skills that use putting a football program together as a stepping stone in their media career. And And so although this does appeal, we think, to the older generation, you got young college kids who do graphic design or photography or creative writing, editing skills, working to deadlines. These are all great skills. If you're coming out of college or just doing something like that in uni, then go to your local non-league club and they will bite your hand off to give you all that experience and opportunity. And they're coming up with some really like innovative stuff. It's good.
Yeah, and actually that is really good, because it's really good. It kind of trains up the next generation then, really, doesn't it? Because obviously to produce such content. I remember doing programs myself when I was secretary of Tower Hamlets. Now, Pete, you've seen a couple of my programs. They weren't brilliant, but it was basically double-sided, photocopied. Some people liked them, some people didn't. But at the end of the day, it was a program. We got everything out there. I got everything in there that was needed. So, and like you said, like you two mentioned, it's the amount of time you have to put into to do that when you've got other things in your life, like work or families, stuff like that. It is hard to do. So fair play to those volunteers that do it. Chris, what programs have you helped produce over the years?
Yeah, not too many really. But I had a friend who was at Fordingbridge Turks, and they hadn't produced for years. So for a couple of seasons running, we did like a pre-season one just to cover their pre-season games, and that got me used to kind of Microsoft like publisher. And I just sort of, probably wasn't the best, but I sort of knew the sorts of things that people wanted, so they were sort of gratefully received. At the moment, I'm working with another guy. My daughter's working for a charity called Equip that works in Rwanda. My daughter's putting on a charity match at AFC Stoneham on Sunday the 20th, 4:15 kickoff. There's the advert. Yeah. But I said I'd sort of help put the program together for that. So yeah, I've got a full-time job, and I like going out watching the footy and stuff. So that means that haven't got the time that these guys have got who put the programs together. So a few one-offs. I think during COVID, when even Saints stopped doing programs for their home games, that kind of vexed me, because I had every program from there to there, and suddenly there was going to be this gap, and I knew there were other people who felt the same. So I put together and didn't try and make it official, called it basically a pirate program, whatever, but put it together and just 8 pages, best information I could, and just got people to send me money. So I gave money to charity, and I had, it was, that might sound, I was selfish because I wanted one for myself, but also it made a few quid. And for about 20 collectors, they've got something in their collection to cover that game. So yeah, and I just tried to have a bit of sense of humour. I think just being a football fan helps, because we've all got our stories. And so for each team it was against, I had a story, because I'd been to, I don't know, Crystal Palace 10 times or Burnley 5 times, whatever. So hopefully I was able to inject a bit of readability into it. But no, absolutely fair play to you guys and those that have done it week in, week out.
Definitely. One thing we will say about obviously programs now, obviously, yeah, they are that there's a cost. Do you think there's maybe possibly too much advertising? I'm going to give an example. Now, Chris and me spoke about this earlier, because we went to the same venue, but for 2 different games, and we had more or less exactly the same experience. Chris and I Chris went to the Hampshire Women's Cup final last season. I went to the men's one, both at Fratton Park. And there was the Hampshire FA were giving out programs on the stairwells in the Fratton end. So Chris bought one for his game, and I bought one along with my friends that were there for that game. And I'll say it, for £2.50, I think it was one of the worst programs I've ever bought, because it was, I think, what was it, Chris? It was about 42 pages, wasn't it? About 35 of them were just pure adverts.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always feel bad criticizing any program, because I just think at least you did one. But I think that's probably just an example of Hampshire FA have gone basically online only with almost all of their programs, which is a decision anyone can make. I think what you then do is you put together, rather than putting together something that's very readable, you just throw adverts, because presumably they could sell them or tell their partners, we'll give you a full page. So I think basically what that was an example was an online program, which was just, we need to do one, so we'll do one. And then because people like you and me are saying, come on, it's a cup final, at least print some. So they printed some. So in some senses, I'm pleased to have something, and it's got a nice cover, and it's a memento of the game. And I think that's just an example, of an online program just putting in pages, because in my opinion, no one's reading it. So I don't know why you bother doing one for online on its own, because we'll come back to that. It's unfair to say no one's reading it, but I think if you knew it was going to be printed and you wanted people to sit there and read it, you would have put a bit more content in it. Definitely.
I would. Well, Pete, what's your thoughts on that?
Regards to adverts, even when me and my dad did the Whittam Town programme in the late 90s, early 2000s, you still had to put, I think you had to have 8 pages of adverts. So we obviously have all the sheets that we'd literally lay them all out and then go through and then put them all to staple them together. But they were obviously, my dad's answer was he just did more. He did the same number of pages of content. So it was about probably a 40-odd page of program every time we did one, because we had to have the 8. But as Chris said, at least they produced something. But I think it's hard. I suppose if it's an FA thing as well, and they've probably got sponsors and the like who probably give them enough money per season. So I don't know, but
I think Peter makes a good point about the adverts that the leagues insist on having, and so I hear this quite a lot from program producers, because I say, look, just produce an A4 in half. If very much print it at work, hardly any cost. And the reply is, yeah, but if we produce a printed program, if we don't produce a printed program, then we don't have to, obviously. But if we do, we've got to put these 8 pages in. And I think probably, whilst that might have been a decent rule at some point, it might have been a good idea. And obviously for league sponsors, it's hard for the step 5 to get sponsors, and then you want to sort of say something. But I think what it's doing now is actually detracting and encouraging clubs to not bother, because they know they've got to put 8 pages, that they've got to pay for the paper and the printing of adverts they don't even want to have in there. So I think one thing that the leagues could and should change is that, and I think you could do that by just having a single page that lists our partners, our sponsors. And so for the local Wessex League, if it's like Velocity and then a different glove sponsor and a football sponsor, not whole pages, just one page. And then so even if you're going to produce a 4-pager or an 8-pager, then you've just got one page of official sponsorship. I don't think leagues have quite moved with the times on that, and I don't think they realise by suggesting you have to have 8 to 10 pages of their adverts that actually they're making clubs say, well, I ain't going to bother then. Or if they do want 8 to 10 pages, then they should pay for it. If the league is saying, I want you to advertise these 8, then give them a quid per advert per program towards it. I don't know. So I think that just needs adjusting.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because last year in the Southern League, Walthamstow had to put, in my opinion, a silly amount of advertisements and promotion stuff in there. And if you've got to do that, the costs, obviously, to print that sort of thing, it can go through the roof. So I can understand that your stance there, Chris. Maybe leagues should do more to help clubs if they want to do printed stuff because of those kind of reasons. Pete, what's your thoughts?
What about the adverts?
Yes.
Well,
we were just saying there. Yeah.
I've reiterate what I've said. It's like, I don't know. I don't know the answer. At the end of the day, it's. I'm sure there are other ways of satisfying your sponsors other than having to put 8 pages in a program. There's so much. There's so much scope. But obviously back when we were doing programs, obviously online wasn't as huge as it is now. So the program was probably one of the only ways I could get it across. But now you've got so many. Most of these leagues have websites and Twitter pages and social media that a lot of the sponsorship could easily be done through that. They don't have to put it in a program. So I just don't think that, clubs producing programs now should really be allowed to concentrate on the content they want to put in there rather than what the league want to put in there, because the league can put all this other information on many other places where the program isn't. So, as Chris said, they've got to move the times, because some of them are still stuck in the about 20, 30 years ago or longer.
Exactly. That's a good point. Okay, well, we're going to take a break and we'll be back in a few minutes here on GFS, where we're going to be discussing about the pros and cons of printed and online programs, and whether the demographics of programs or program buyers, I should say, has changed in recent years. Chris, we'll let you have a song. Is there any song you would like for us to play?
Oh, well, on the spot there. What have I been talking about? Love, favourite band, Madness. It Must Be Love, Madness. You got some of that?
Ian?
Yeah, put me on the spot as well.
Sorry.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
I never thought I'd miss you half as much as I do. And I never thought I'd feel this way, the way I feel about you. Soon as I wake up, every night, every day, I know that it's you I need to take the blues away. It must be love, love, love. It must be love, love, love. Nothing more, nothing less. Love is the best. How can it be that we can say so much without words? Bless you and bless me. Bless the bees and the birds. I've got to be near you every night, every day. I couldn't be happy any other way. It must be love, love, love. It must be love, love, love. Nothing more, nothing less. Love is the best. As soon as I wake up, every night, every day, I know that it's you I need to take the blues away. It must be love, love, love. 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 It must be love, love, love.
We love a bit of madness. That is a great song. It Must Be Love here on GFS on East London Radio with Adam, Pete and Chris from Non-League Progs. Ashley Hanson will be joining us at around about half hour, 35 minutes time. So we're looking forward to that. But now let's continue our discussion on the future of the match day programme. Chris, we had a discussion off air about this earlier, about the demographics of the match day programme as well. Do you think they've changed in recent years, and why?
Yeah, absolutely. It's changed, and why is the internet. So you've got people like myself, so I'm 49, and people my age and older used to buying the programs. What we do, it's how we operate. Even though we know the stuff is online, we would still rather have a big piece of paper in our hands. For younger people, they have been brought up, if they want a piece of information, they click on their phone. That's just the way that they now think. So absolutely, you are looking at in some ways falling demand as us oldies get older, and as the youngies come along without that kind of passion for the printed program. So yeah, a demographic is certainly causing giving people an excuse to say, well, let's stop then. And I guess to counter that, first of all, as I said earlier, these 16, 18-year-olds, college, uni, getting into graphic design and stuff, I think print can still speak to them and they can see that. I liken it to vinyl sometimes, where it's us oldies who love the vinyl, but you've got a lot of youngies getting into it now, because not everything that's new and different is necessarily better. In a discussion earlier, I was talking about test match cricket versus some of these new flashier formats, and just because there's a new flashier format that's supposed to attract younger audiences, it doesn't mean that actually we couldn't teach better and show people better that test matches are amazing, as we've seen. So I think that I'm not completely lost on youngies buying programs, but you're fighting against the tide. Absolutely. Even with my own kids, even with dad, non-league progs dad, they don't automatically say, I'm going to the newspaper shop or I want to buy that piece of paper. That's just not in their psyche anymore. Thankfully, there's plenty of people that still are. And I think what I often say is, if 10% of your crowd is going to buy a program, then why would you alienate 10% of your 200 fans? Why would you alienate 20 of them to not do one? So no one's saying you're going to sell all 200, but with a realistic print run, I think there's still enough of us who are interested in one to keep them going. And then within that, like vinyl, trying to get the youngies back into it again. And I've got a feeling that what I'm seeing is people go online, clubs go online, and then it just peters out. We'll talk about online in a minute. And then after a while again, they see some printed programs selling out and they think, oh no, actually that's cool. So my hope is that this will be a little bit cyclical, and clubs will go across to online because they think it's cheaper and better and stuff, but then they'll see opportunities back in with print. We'll see.
Yeah. I think another area of the game that is hitting as well is match tickets, because where like Pete mentioned, you used to keep your ticket, your pro along with your program. I think you said as well you've got quite a few of your old tickets, Chris. But the thing is, with the digital age, unfortunately, comes a phone, and unfortunately, there's so many clubs, professionally and now in non-league, offering e-tickets, digital tickets, and that's another example of fighting against the tide. And you love keeping your ticket stubs as memories and that, but these youngsters find it so much easier when their phones tap in at a game, they're in.
I think you've actually also got the difference between some people in life are collectors and some people aren't, and so that's not necessarily an age thing. So my best mate, we go to Germany for some footy matches and stuff, and at the end of a recent trip, that's a few years ago now, I still had it was Schalke match that we went to. I had his ticket stub because I had all the tickets, so I was like, there's your ticket stub, as if I was giving him the most valuable thing. The momentum for me is, and he went, no, I don't want it. And I just cannot compute as a collector that you wouldn't keep your ticket stub. And I'll grab for the YouTube audience, there's my box straight away, and there's my ticket stubs.
Wow, got those.
Wow.
Cricket, Saints, all that sort of stuff, and non-league. And for me, so as well as the demographic of old and young, you'll find some people just have this gene of being a collector. And those of us who have got that gene, maybe it'll be cheaper for us in life if we didn't have it, but I can't help it. If I go to a game, I want a printed ticket, a printed team sheet, printed program. If there's a match poster, my son, you might see a couple of these behind me. started nabbing posters for. I mean, it's madness in many ways, but as well as the difference between old and young, I think there's some people who are collectors and some people who aren't.
We Pete and I have a mutual friend who's been going. There's been a season ticket holder at West Ham United for God knows what 50 odd years now.
No, I'll pray for him.
Yeah. Pete, you obviously know what I'm talking about. And obviously he loves his programs. Everywhere he goes, he's always going, have you got a program, please, mate? And literally, he always says, if I can pick him up a spare program from the game I'm at, he'll pay for it. And if I don't want my ticket stub, he's happy. He'll put it in his little collection. So it's great that there's still people that think like that.
And so collecting is a group of people, but I also see on my site, people reacting to that and saying, well, why should we lose money and spend all money just because, some groundhoppers or collectors will come along? So I think there's collectors, and that's worth noting, but also there's match going fans. And for match going fans, often we're legacy fans these days, our mobile phones might not be smart enough or have enough battery to bring up your online program. We're stood outside in the sunshine anyway, so we can't really view it very well on the screen. And it's just not natural to be going to a game and scrolling through something on your phone. And I think that's another reason why, not just producing for collectors, but again, I go to footy on my own quite a bit, and so for me, and I get there stupid early because I want a program. So then you can sit there in the clubhouse and just read the program, and you get to know all the information. Now, if you tell me that's all online, I won't go online. I won't go on a club website and read their history.
You sit on your phone and read it. I
know.
No, you could say, what's the difference? I can't explain what the difference is, but I will sit there and read a program cover to cover and read all the history of the away team and the pen pictures, the manager's notes. But if you told me that was all online, it's just not like how I would roll. And so it's not just for collectors. I think it's for match going fans as well.
Pete also will remember this actually as well. What I'm going to say, what I'm about to say. But your point is there. I get people when I'm at Walthamstow and I'm on the gate coming up to me at 12:30. But the program's here. Yeah, the program's here. Yeah. So you get people like that. Now. Last year, I remember I got extremely frustrated at games. I couldn't find a program. We kind of alluded to this earlier. Pete was actually with us when we went to watch Norway versus Northern Ireland in the Women's Euros at St Mary's. And do you remember when we got to St Mary's? I was thinking, where's the programs, Pete? There was the brochure, and they said there might be programs inside the stadium. So I was going actually in Chris, you'll know better than where. You'll know better, obviously better than me. There's a little shop area inside the concourse at St Mary's near the food and drink.
Yeah, I mean, for the Euros, obviously UEFA come along and set up what they set up. So I went to 5 or 6 of the women's games in different grounds as well as St Mary's, and basically they had their own little roadshow minibus thing, which they opened up the shutters, and they had this, like you say, this tournament brochure. And so I think for me, we haven't quite touched on yet, but some people just like to buy a program when it's a big game, a memorable one. So if you were going to say England, Northern Ireland in the Euros, particularly Northern Ireland fans, they travelled in numbers. A good majority would have grabbed the program, definitely, and they would have access at home. And so you're missing out, I think, on your bigger games. I think there was an example of a Europa game in Wales week before last. Load of groundhoppers, loads of people going. Real opportunity, didn't do a program, and you sort of think, well, that's fine. Make your decision, but you've actually kind of missed out on, because that's a momentous game in your history, and you'd have sold a good few, and you'd have had that for future as well. So the big tournaments, it looks like they're getting less and less. UEFA are quite good. I get the champion. There's a website, I think it's called European Nights, and they still produce the printed Champions League, Conference League, Europa, Women's Champions League programs, so you can buy them online. So that looks like that's still staying for now.
I'll be honest, I was corrected. There was a final. There was a special program printed for the final. I was corrected when I said that earlier. But Pete, over to you.
I was gonna say a lot of these tournaments do like a tournament brochure, don't they? they kind of put everything into one, so they don't. It's less. They don't have to produce it for so many of the games. But I think that's where a lot of them go now. They can't. They just. It's more like a magazine for the tournament, I guess. But
yeah. And as we said, because they're overseas, it's only really in England where we would even be asking. I guess in other
a lot
countries.
of countries don't even. They think, oh, this is something new. Then, or they wouldn't think anything of it because they're not used to buying them. So it's only really Britain that do this sort of thing or have done this sort of thing. So, but it's it's just a tradition in this country, isn't it? I mean, I said you just as you said about people. I mean, you're getting there at the game early to get a program. I remember when I used to do, but I've seen like groundhoppers like jumping out of the car and running to the turnstile just to make sure they get a program, and because they can't bear the thought of not having one.
Yeah.
That's how important it is to some people. It's just and clubs should recognise this because. They say that it's something you said earlier about a club going, why should we produce a program just for a collector? I'm thinking, should have learned through COVID how important fans are to football clubs, and you should be catering for their needs because they're the people that ultimately keep the clubs and the game going. Because as we found out during COVID, when there were no fans, it was awful, wasn't it? So, I just think that I think clubs, hopefully, I don't know. I mean, some may realise how much just like an A4 bit of paper or just a few pages with information on it, how important it is to some people, and maybe they will make them think twice about going online, but who knows? I mean, this is the way the world is now. So it's all about apps. It's all about online interaction. It's all about social media, and this just didn't exist 20, 30 years ago. That's the thing. This is it's kind of how the world is now. So it's like a fight against that, isn't it? But
I think we'll talk about it online in a second, but I don't like. So I really, really understand where clubs say, "Why am I printing 50 programs? No one buys them, and it's costing us money."
Yeah,
and we've been doing this for 3 years. So I think when we'll come back with it's traditional or a collector wants one, I can understand when they say, "Well, that's." But what I say is, the COVID thing, that's over now. Newspapers carried on the whole way through, so programs didn't need to stop. The environmental thing, we're talking such small numbers in non-league, and you can offset, etc., and use paper from certain places, whatever. I think rising costs is a real thing, and I think we're used to a £1 program, but if I go along and it's £2 now, I just go, well, beer's gone up, bread's gone up, and my program's gone up by £1. So that I don't mind if you need to put the price up for that. But it's more the other side of things where I've seen time and time again on the non-league progs is that clubs are selling out their programs. So it's like there is a counter argument here, and it's not just it's traditional. They happen to have a load of collectors there that day. They've actually understood that if you actively sell programs. So I was talking earlier, I went to a Saints game at Newport, couldn't find a program outside, went in the away end, couldn't find a program, asked the steward where the programs were. He said, there's a guy over there. I couldn't see the guy, found him. He didn't have a bib on. He wasn't calling out programs. He had a box at his feet and he had the programs. So I bought my program. So what's going to happen? They're going to report in some board meeting that we only sold 300 programs. If you are actively selling those programs, which I thought I'll put my money where my mouth is. So I joined Eastleigh for a season and sold their programs and just bounded around the ground with enthusiasm. Every time they were getting their wallet out for a beer, I was behind them going £2 and you get your program. When they're at the turnstile, the guy sat on his own in the bar, actively selling them, you're going to sell more. I think realistic print runs are important. If you print 1,000 and you're only getting rid of 200, then you say, we've got 800 left. We'll print 200 and then sell out and create a sense of, and then to reduce your numbers and then build them back up again. I think sponsorship, I think it's important. I think whatever locality you're in, surely there's someone knocking on doors, businesses and that to say, your business could be front and center here, sponsoring this 24 times a year. It's going to locals. It's also going to people traveling. If you can get a little bit of sponsorship, obviously, ideally from a local printing company, even better, but sponsorship will mean you can at least break even. And don't feel you need to produce a 80-page magazine, like I say, 20, 24. So I think when clubs actively sell and realistic print runs, then I think you are going to be able to be in a position where you can at least break even.
Yeah. Okay. I'll be honest with you. As I said to you, I had that experience at Newport last season. I couldn't, when I went there in the Carabao Cup, I couldn't find a seller, and there was the bloke sitting there with a box at his feet, card machine. You wouldn't even know. You just thought he's a random supporter.
Yeah, it's mad. Like, absolutely. And so only the likes of me and you. You were there for a Pompey game, I was there for a Saints game, but apart from that difference, you know, we're the ones seeking out a program, but they would have sold minimal because no one knew they were there.
Exactly. So we'll go to online programs. In your opinion, Chris, what are the pros and cons about with online programs?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, if you're producing a program, put it online, because like you've designed it online. So put it online. So when people say about online programs, I think it's a no-brainer to produce yourself a program. And when you've done that, you might as well put it online. So I've not got a problem with online programs at all. And there are obviously some people who might go on it and read it. So happy days. But I think, you know, for match day fans, it's the printed program that's the important bit. So I'm a both man. I want to think that printed programs could be viable. But then if you want to put it on the website day before, day after, I don't really mind. So happy days for online programs if you want to do that, but just print a few for the reasons that we've talked about. I think for the match going fan, we just talked about it. You can't go on your phone when you're there. You know, even at like St Mary's, the Wi-Fi is terrible. You can't get your 4G. You can't even open Twitter, let alone flick through like 24 pages on some Flix board or something. I think content can suffer when you go online for the reasons we talked about, that Hampshire FA. I think you sort of think, oh, I'm putting this program together because the league says I've got to do one. So I'll put the adverts in, I'll put in a little manager's notes. And so the creativity gets sapped out of it a little bit when it's online only, in my opinion, not always. And also I think that, you know, it's all about, for me, that's why I love non-league programs. I love league programs as well, but I love non-league. And I think, you know, non-league, you know, here, Sam in Shoaling area, you know, you're advertising your local butcher, yeah, because, you know, he's giving you a few quid and you sponsor him. Now, if someone in America's reading that, he ain't going to use Dave's Butcher in Southampton High Street, is he? So it's not
jump on the next Concorde, or not Concorde, or
it's a long way to
jet and come over here.
It's a long way to fly for your barbecue requirements. But what I'm saying is, you know, put it online because someone in Philadelphia might then hear about your club. You know, yes. But we're talking about match day fans going along who might then use that local butcher, and that local butcher then supports your club a little bit more. So I think the printed version of it going to the local people is about advertising to local people. And I just also think some of the stats that they're coming out with, as in we had 5,000 clicks on our program, right? I think from what I understand, there's bots doing what bots do all the time, which are bouncing between websites. And if you produce, I won't name a club as a desultory thing, but you know, a small club where you're getting 50 people, but you say you're getting 5,000 hits on your program, you know, you're not really. There's probably not 5,000 people looking at it and reading it. So I think that online, put your program online, because why not? It's a little bit of extra advertising. Few people might see it, but produce it in a way that it can be printed for those match going fans and collectors who want them. I think that's where I am.
And you're losing money as well, Chris, because obviously the physical program, you can charge £1, £2. I know some clubs have done an online thing with Zettle or SumUp or PayPal where you can pay for an online program, but at the same time you are still losing out in a sense, because that income could pay for a referee or two.
I'd love to see. I mean, I don't subscribe for anything really. You know, you've got the Athletic or the Times. You know, there's some quality people out there who now put a paywall up, and I just go elsewhere. And it's not that you can't necessarily afford a quid or whatever it is, but it's just weird to pay for things online. It just doesn't feel. And so to pay, I don't click on online programs, to be honest. a lot of the time because I don't want to be a click. I don't want to be counted as a click. That's how sad I am. But yeah, for me, that's not a good enough argument. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough.
It's not really the match day experience, is it? clicking on onto an online program.
Yeah, like and again, don't want to denigrate those people who put them together. I think it's great you've put it together. And that's what I think. You've done the editorial, you've got the photographs, all your pieces in, you've done all that work. Surely, wouldn't it be nice to then showcase that on the Saturday and then people watch people reading it? So yeah, put them online, but just print a few as well.
Definitely. We obviously on Twitter advertised that you was coming on, and we asked people's views about obviously the programs and that, and we were absolutely inundated with quite a few opinions on this. I'm going to read some of these out. Evening to Councillor Ian Sherwood from Breckland Council in Norfolk. Thank you very much for getting in touch. He says he loves the program and he always buys one, and the advertising should help raise funds for the club. Which, back to my point there about if you do it online and don't charge, you're losing out on vital funds for the club there, which he does have a point. Also, we have Kevin from Tonbridge says he buys a program if available. Tonbridge Angels are still doing a program this season. Thanks to Dave, by the way, from Hampshire, who said that there was a tournament, the actual tournament program at the Euros in addition to the final. George from Enfield says, my club, Enfield Town, still have them. While I still don't see many holding one, for those of us who do like programs, it is a big thing. I love reading them at half time and going home, then having them stored for collection and memories. But I understand they may no longer be viable, though. So that's an interesting point there from George, actually.
Yeah, like I say, that the whole thing is not to, pretend that half your crowd will buy one, at £3. I think that's not the argument we're trying to make. So absolutely, a number of people won't buy them, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah. Corby from Gresley Rovers Football Club says they have a great program produced by one of their club partners, and it's pulled together by one of their stalwart volunteers. Derek from Romford says, for me, it's part of going to a match, but it's never been that for everyone, and clearly clubs are finding them too much of a cost burden. I've heard it said that my club, Romford, will be among the last ones standing when it comes to a printed or photocopy program. There's a secondary issue where there used to be a club's main communication with supporters. Now club websites can do anything a program can, and in real time. However, the moment in time a program provides makes it a valuable historical document, even when it's out of date. But ultimately, football is about traditions. And in the digital age, something as analog as a printed program is priceless. And do you know what? Fair play, Derek. That's a fantastic point, what he said there.
Yeah, spot on all those points. And Romford are doing an amazing program, so fair play to them.
Yeah, they are. And the thing is, when he says about communication with supporters, obviously you've got Twitter, you've got social now. Back in the day, it was obviously the program, or what was that thing you used to call Club Call, wasn't it? 0908, whatever it was. About 45p a minute, or whatever it was.
Yeah. I wasted a lot of 10p's in my break. Marks and Spencer in Lakeside, like trying to find out the Saints. Do you know what they used to do? For me, I'll be in my break trying to find out the Saints score, and they would be commentating on the game, but they wouldn't say the score. So you had to keep on, and you're listening to Benali's put it out of play again, and Ian Dowie's missed again, and you're like, I just need to know the score. But this is crazy the times we lived in, but I reckon they must have made a lot of money, the old Club Call people.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely. Same old. Benali and Ian Dowie losing the ball. I'm joking. Paul from Doncaster. Always buy one everywhere I go. Have over 5,000. That's football. Fair enough. I've retweeted one here. I won't be able to show it for the YouTube audience, but I can describe it. Alan says, how much effort would it take for a club to provide this as a minimum? And he has got basically a team sheet. I don't know if you saw this one, Chris, from Watford versus QPR in 1945.
Yeah, so he makes a good point, because what he's saying is, so this single sheet, which you can get a good bit of detail if you're two-sided, and he said, or another person also said, in wartime, Clubs managed to produce this, and there's austerity and there's all sorts going on in the background in terms of socially and stuff.
Let me share the screen. Actually, I'll bring this up, but carry on.
Yeah. So I think his point and another person's point was if during wartime clubs could at least produce a two-sided something, then at bare minimum you think clubs could, and that comes back to that adverts thing. I think if clubs didn't have to put the 10 pages of adverts, they could at least go to something simple like you've shared there, which sometimes is just a single side of A4 or a little bit smaller, two-sided. Yeah, absolutely.
Evening to our friends at White Enzyme. We are doing one this season, albeit online only because of rising costs. We looked into the feasibility of doing a printed edition, but the costs outweighed the possible income, which would have meant we make a loss, which isn't feasible for us in this day and age. So, yeah, you can kind of see their predicament as well.
Absolutely, and like I say, then they're clubs that certainly my Twitter site is not seeking to be negative about. I think it sounds like he's looked into it. He's done some research, done some tech. Doesn't think the numbers add up. And so stepping away from it, you never know, in a year's time a supporter might come along who's got a real passion for it, works in the local printers, and maybe they could get something going again. I think for me, I wouldn't aim to make money. I'd just say if you could break even, because if you can break even and you're producing something that some of your fans quite like, but I understand the rising costs, and that is a definite factor.
Definitely. Andy Dakin, a lot of clubs have priced themselves out by insisting on producing full colour glossy issues, which cost a fortune to print, charging up to £3, which many fans won't pay. Then, because sales are falling, use that as a reason for non-publication.
Yeah, I mean, it's hit the nail on the head. I look at the EFL clubs, and a lot of them, Carlisle, and a number of biggies, Swansea and stuff are going, and that's what happened. They were producing these 80 pages, and then they say we can't afford it anymore. Now, if I've seen a number of non-league clubs produce really cool 24 pages, A5, then an EFL club could easily do something like that. So it's like, I think EFL clubs have gone with, we need to produce a £4 86 pager, or we're not going to do one at all. Whereas I think if the likes of the teams that we've referenced tonight can produce these tidy little programs that are selling out locally, then an EFL club should be doing something like that. And you can be, at the end of the day, do a monthly one. If you're not going to do a weekly one, do a monthly one, or do some kind of print that's not going to cost you the earth to do it for those of us that want them. Some clubs are going out of their way to make them unprintable, and you think, why would you go to that length? Some of them make them 23 pages, not 24, so that they can't then be made into I can't see any reasons for that. I think EFL clubs could produce tidy little programs, and there's no real excuse when I see step 5, step 6, step 7 clubs putting some decent stuff together.
I think what you said quickly about monthly ones, Clanfield, who were promoted from Hampshire Prem to Wessex 1 last season, they were doing monthly ones. I don't know if they're still going to do that. Obviously, now they were in step 6, their ground share Hammond and Waterlooville, didn't they? But they're an example of a club that do monthly ones. I think what you said there about EFL clubs, I know of 6 clubs in League One that aren't doing programs this year, and some of the games I'm eyeing to go to, which I'm really disappointed about. But we're going to mention this later on, obviously, when Ashley comes on in a minute. Ashley, I know you're waiting in the queue, but we'll let you in a sec. Really, attitudes in football, whether it's programs or other topics we can discuss later in the show, start at the top. So,
yeah, that's where I think when the EFL changed the rule and said they're not mandatory, I think that was the beginning of the floodgates, because when they were mandatory, I can understand why clubs didn't like that, but when they were mandatory, clubs had to do them, and I kind of think that was the right rule at the time to make them mandatory, because what we've seen is when we say they're not mandatory, then it's an easy opt out to not do one. So for me, I would go back to mandatory, but I would take away some of these rules about the adverts and that kind of thing, and say, look, even if it's 2 sides of A4, then you need to produce something.
Definitely. I just want to say quickly, obviously, because we'll let you go in a minute, Chris. Just thanks to everyone that got in touch. From Jeremy, 49ers Dave, Trowbridge Town, Johnny G, the Cold End. Thank you to everyone who got in touch about this. We can't read out all your opinions, but they will be retweeted on our Twitter page. And if you want to carry on the conversation, by all means. Chris, before we let you go, how can people follow you and your campaigns, obviously to praise the printed program?
To big up
the printed program,
humble printed program. So on X, which I believe was formerly known as Twitter,
or wherever it is this week.
We've got that, which is and then LGE, so non-league, shortened to LGE Progs. So that is on Twitter and Instagram, and even tried that newfangled thing that came out the other day. So we're on that as well. Let me just check what that's called. Can't remember. And then my Saints Progs, which is a similar thing again, but just for Southampton programs, is Saints Progs on Twitter and Instagram. Threads is what I was trying to remember. And also, I do a bit of sort of ground hopping stuff for an American website called Stadium Journey. So I run a Twitter called Stadium J Europe. And so that's more sort of grounds based, but always happy. For me, Twitter's about interaction, and so I don't like the sort of the bigger EFL clubs where they don't reply and that. So I try and reply as much as I can. It's in between my work, so sometimes it's a bit rushed. But I love, and like I say, I'm not against anyone or wishing bad things on any clubs. I love all of non-league, and I go to loads of non-league games without programs. So it is what it is, but I'm just trying to, like I say, be positive about those who do. But thanks for having me on. It's been cool.
Yeah, it's been brilliant, Chris. Thank you so much for coming on, and we really, really appreciate it. And then obviously, when programs come up again, we'll have you back on. We might even do a program special. But GFS, like Chris, we are happy for printed programs. We love printed programs. Any programs in our region that are printed, we will retweet and obviously praise the printed program like yourself. So
brilliant.
Thanks very much, Chris. Enjoy. Have a good rest of the season. And I would say good luck to Southampton, but I think I might upset a few of my family and friends by saying that.
That'd be painful for you to say that, wouldn't it?
Thank you very much for being with us this evening. All the best.
Chris,
thank you.
Appreciate that. Really good.
You're very welcome, gents. Goodbye, everyone listening.
All the best. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Right.
Coming up on GFS, Ashley Hanson joins us in just a couple of minutes' time, but we're going to take a break. And here's some music. Cheers, Chris.
Cheers, guys.
All the best, mate. Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.
There we go.
So it's now one. If Ashley can put his camera on and unmute himself, it's like a nightclub in here tonight, isn't it? It's 1 in, 1 out, like a nightclub, single file, isn't it? Here he is. No, you're still on mute.
How do I unmute? Hover on the screen and then the dots at the top. Can you not just unmute, you mad?
I'll try. This is just for our YouTube audience, by the way. Right, hang on. What's going on here?
They get to see
participants. Ashley Hanson. Asked to unmute. Well, all I can do is ask to unmute.
All right. Well, you might be able to click on something.
Yeah.
You just know to unmute himself. Can you hear us?
It should be at the top of... Can you hear us?
Yeah. So
yes.
Hover on your photo, and then at the top there's a blue box with dots in it. Don't even know what to do.
By the way, for the YouTube viewers, thank you very much to Chris. That was a brilliant insight into programs, wasn't it? Yeah. The mute button should be next to your video button.
This is fun.
It wouldn't be GFS without this, though, would it?
No. Because if I hover on my screen, there's a button that says mute. So I'm assuming there'll be a button that says unmute, but hang on. I'm going to Google it. Oh.
Oh, he's there. I think he's going to come back in.
Yeah, he's going to try and rejoin when he's not muted. Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know, because no, he's hovering his screen and there's someone to unmute it, I'm sure.
Sorry for the and if I put anyone off with the dance in there. Welcome back. Welcome back to GFS here on East London Radio. It is 13 minutes past 8. Ashley, as you may have seen on YouTube or YouTube Live, having some difficulties trying to unmute himself. He's just logged out and he's going to log back in again. But Pete, I must say, just to fill time for a sec, what a great discussion that was on programs.
Yeah, no, it was good. Yeah, no, he spoke very well. Obviously, he's very passionate about the program. Obviously, he wouldn't be doing the stuff on social media if he wasn't. So, and yeah, he raised some very valid points. But as we like to reiterate, we're not, he especially, and we're not being negative about clubs who don't produce programs, because everyone has their reasons why they don't. But obviously, it's quite an important thing for a lot of people to have one. So sometimes it's worth having them if you can attract more people into your club. I don't know, but yeah, certainly a very there's a lot of strong opinions about it. Let's put it that way. In the game, as you see all the time about clubs when they don't produce programs, and you get a lot of people moaning about it because they would like a program. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting subject, and yeah, it was good to have him on. It was a good discussion. It was very, very good.
Okay. Is Ashley there? Oh no, he's gone and come back. Oh God, he's having a few.
Well, this is the beauty of live. This is the beauty. Well, this is the only problem with Zoom and live radio. But we shouldn't dwell on it too. We'll just carry on until he comes back. So yeah, definitely. We've got a lot to discuss, obviously, in the next hour and a quarter. Just to give the live, actually, Pete. Actually, no, I'll let him in again. Here we go. So hopefully this will work this time. Here he comes. Yeah. Yes. Oh, he's muted again.
Right. Yes. Can you hear me?
There he is.
Hey. Here I am.
He's finally in.
But basically, Pete, I'm on and Adam, I'm on an iPad, so I'm on Apple, right. So it's different, and I've not used Zoom on this before, but it took a few resets, but we're there.
You're there. Well, welcome, Ashley, to the program. Thank you very much for being here.
No problem. Good evening, guys.
Thank you very much. Just a quick, obviously, I don't know if you heard the discussion, obviously, beforehand with Chris and about the programs. Your thoughts on programs and your opinions and your experiences.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything Chris says really about programs. I think they're kind of an integral part of the experience. So I give you an example, like locally when I was up there, got to the pay booth, asked for a program, and they sort of went, actually, we've had a bit of a problem with our processing of the program. But what they did do, they produced a massive A4 copy of the program to make sure that obviously the customers and non-league get their program. So very, very thankful to locally for that. And yeah, I think they're an integral part of the whole experience of the game. And it's a shame where we've got sort of maybe clubs that don't do that. People tend to go to a game more with a program than not, I think, at times.
Yeah.
No, I go on, Pete.
Yes, I say Little Oakley, a cracking little club, aren't they?
They are.
Really, a really good club. Yeah, the one time I went up there, they were really good. And was that the game? Was that the Friendford game, or was that the first game? Or
who was that? That was Friendford. Yeah,
yeah. Because Scott was up there for that as well, because he went with Rob Errington, and yeah, he said, yeah, everything you said about the club was correct. He said they came out, welcomed us, and everything. Yeah, so they really go out their way to make you feel welcome. So I'm not surprised they did something like that, because they want to look after people that come and watch them. So that's good.
They do.
Very good. Very good.
Okay, well, obviously we'll come on to results and that shortly, but all I'm going to say is this: in 5 days, you had what? Comebacks, crazy results, pitches not ready and being called off.
Yeah.
Red cards, penalties, unexpected scorelines. It can only be the Essex Senior League and the third line on the South, literally. It has been, I mean, if Colesberg did crazy weeks, then yeah, Ashley, obviously, we haven't really discussed this with you. Now, on the programme last week, we said it had the capability of both divisions had the capability of being the most cracking, the best seasons ever. And if the first 5 days or anything to go by, we're in for one heck of a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, absolute madness, isn't it? It's I was hoping, because the first game I filmed this season was Romford Saffron Walden, wasn't it? And I turned up there and I thought, well, I'm a bit rusty, so I thought, I hope I kind of just get like 1 or 2 goals in that game. But the first half hour was absolute madness, wasn't it? 3-0 up went Romford in half an hour, I think, that one.
Yeah, well, that's where we're going to start, actually, because we picked some selected games out, obviously, from the. We will start with Romford versus Saffron Walden, where you was on Friday night. It was an unbelievable game to start the ESL season. I think it was like 4 goals in opening 12 minutes. So, obviously, with permission from Ashley, we're going to do this going forward through the season as well. We're going to share the screen and show some goals. So, hopefully, this will work. Hopefully, I won't have as many technical issues as Ashley did. But
if you're watching on YouTube, you're in for a treat. If you're not, you should be.
Okay, here we go. So, talk us through it, Ashley.
Yeah, so it looks like there's a goal kick there. Comes over to the right back, looks up. Bearing in mind, this is the first few minutes of through ball. Drops there to the right wing, and that's Finn in the middle. Puts in his first. And I'm thinking, wow, 2-3 minutes, first goal of the season. And then I thought, well, perhaps that's it. And then the Walden, I think that was the 4th goal, that one. I'm not sure, but that's the 4th goal. And that was Walden pulling one back.
Reece Barrett, yeah.
Yeah.
I swear, didn't Walden equalise and then Romford went 2-1 up?
Oh, have I got it wrong now? It was so mad that day.
Yeah, it is. I
don't
blame you, mate.
Actually, I know you feel, mate. Don't worry.
So there you go. It's the bar. There we go.
Wow.
And there we go. So you thought, well, any more?
Yeah.
I mean, Bruno did well to hold the ball up there at front, and because when I'm filming, I see the defenders and the strikers. Obviously, I've got like a tunnel vision of it. So
Yeah.
So there we go. So he's picked it up, put it through, crossing the net again. I believe he played for
Romford. Yeah, Springfield and Wakebury before that. Yeah, he was. He played at step 7 and below, so that's to step up and score a hat trick when you first going in the Premier League was pretty special.
Yeah. So it's like second half now.
Yeah.
So I think it's just after the red card. I didn't really get the red card very good. The tackle that's gone out to the left again. Again, they're using the wings really well.
Yeah,
great.
I like that. A great header.
That's a great header, wasn't it? Yeah. Because he had to readjust to sort of really get his neck muscles behind it, didn't he? So
he did. You're right there, Pete. He really did get well there. And then this is Sonny's goal now. So it's bobbling around. It's gone off to Sonny Schilling. And a bit exposed to back, I think, Gordon, because of the 10 men, I think. So, but yeah, Sonny's done well on right there.
Definitely. As it is only 23 minutes past 8, I do have to apologise for any colourful language you may have heard in the background when that 5th goal was scored.
Yeah, it wasn't Ash.
and I must apologise going forward if you do hear any colourful language. We do apologise. We cannot help it. But yeah, I mean, what a way to start the season! Literally, I mean, wow,
amazing, absolutely amazing. Yeah, and Walden were good. Played well last season, didn't they? I think they were mid-table, maybe a bit higher. So yeah, I was expecting a closer game, definitely with that one.
I think we all was. Go on, babe.
I was going to say, did the red card make any difference, or were Romford still?
I think Romford was dominating a bit, to be honest. Before the red card, I don't think it made that. I think it was 3-1 to Romford at the time.
Right. Okay.
I think so. But yeah, I mean, just trying to make an honest tackle, but caught him a bit high. The ref went straight to the red. I think everybody around us knew it was a red card, I think, at the time. Right. So, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Obviously, we will go on to see the Saturday results as well. We'll start with what was voted by you viewers / listeners as our result of the weekend. Tilbury 0, Athletic Newham 3. Now, I don't know who wants to start this. Now, if you look at the dynamics of the result, it looks a shock. But when you see Richard Kone scored a hat trick, at the same time, you're not surprised. But a very rude awakening to Tilbury back in the ESL after what I think about 20 years. 20 years away.
It's been a while, hasn't it? It's been several years. I actually bumped into a couple of Tilbury folk players and staff who were at a game I was at this week, and they mentioned Richard Kone. And we're saying that if Richard Kone is on form, he had quite a bad injury last season. He hurt his knee, so he wasn't really fully fit last year, and he was still reasonable. But he looks like he's back to his best, and a Richard Kone in full flight, nobody in this division can cope with him. He's too good for this level when he's on form, when he's like at his best, and he carries that team. And they've got some good other. I mean, they're not just a one-man team, but without Richard Kone, they're a much weaker side. And yeah, he was unplayable. And they said to me, yeah, he was unplayable. He just destroyed us, and that was probably the difference in the game. So, but great result for us. A great start. I mean, yeah, Tilbury are a lot of people tips for win the league because they're favourites. I think along with Holbridge and some others, they're definitely supposed to be one of the front runners. But this, as I said, this is a rude awakening to get beat 3-0 at home. So yeah, shows that it's not an easy division.
Ashley, I'm going to ask you this without giving too much away about the midweek results. Tilbury, they've come down, 1 point on the board, but no goals scored. Yes, we see teams struggle to adapt to levels, but if you were Tilbury, would you be worried?
I wouldn't be worried to start with. I think it does take time to settle into a league, and a league like the Essex Senior Leagues. A lot of the teams, you kind of know the style of play. You know how a team's going to play, perhaps, and perhaps they sort of were caught out a little bit with Richard, because Richard is phenomenal, isn't he? He's phenomenal on the ball, with his balance and the way that he can just take players on, and his vision. Just everything all round at this level is going to be cracking goals in all the time. So I think Tilbury maybe got a little bit caught out with that, I think, and first game as well. So I'm sure things will turn around there. I think Tilbury's going to definitely finish up there, aren't they? I think.
Yeah, definitely right there.
Definitely, 100%. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Pete now, who's going to take us through another relegated. Pete's gonna. I can imagine it's Pete's face, because this was just one balmy ending to a game I've ever read about.
Yeah,
take it away, Pete.
I mean, we've probably done another show for this game on its own, but no. I mean, I was obviously Saturday. I was over at Great Wakering against Sporting Bengal. Two sides are obviously having differing fortunes at the end of last season.
Converging on the ESL from different directions.
Yeah. Obviously, Wakering came back into the ESL after getting relegated after losing their playoff against Corn 5-0 at home. So that wasn't a great ending. And then obviously Sporting came up from the Furlong First Division South after winning their playoff on penalties against Stanway Pegasus. So they were back in the senior league, and they're a much different side from the one that left the senior league 2 years ago. Let's just put it that way. Much more organised. They're solid, well drilled. Steve Clark's and Matty G got them well drilled, and they've got some really good attacking options as well. So they're going to be a tough game for a lot of teams in this league this season. I think they'll do reasonably well. But onto this game, obviously Wakering. Many people fancy them to win this opening game, obviously, because they were only just come down from step 4 and Sporting and then just come up. But and obviously, Wakering had the golden chance to start the game in good fashion. They won a penalty inside the opening minute, but saw it saved by Sidi Hadara in the Sporting Bengal goal. It was Jake Gordon who took the penalty. Good save, and that was so they missed the chance. Wakering had a couple of chances after that. They couldn't get them on target, and Sporting had their chances too. It was one of those games where you were scratching your head wondering how it was still 0-0 at half time. There was plenty of action, and then into the second half, and lo and behold, Wakering get another penalty about 10 minutes into the second half. Jake Gordon didn't take this penalty. It was Ben Search that was given the honours, and he missed as well. So and Hadara saved that one too, diving to his right this time. So 2 penalty saves for the Sporting keeper. That's not a bad start to the season with him. But then I think it was a few minutes after that, they got a free kick just outside the box. Wakering, and Jake Gordon, who missed the first penalty, stepped up, fired it with a lot of power, and Hadara actually got a big hand to it, but could only push it in off the post. He would probably be disappointed, actually, because he probably would have fancied saving it. So Wakering did manage to get the lead. And then when they went 1-0 up, that was the only time Sporting looked a little bit unsettled and a little bit frustrated. And Wakering, I thought at that point they may go on, and if they got a second goal, I think they might have gone on and won it comfortably. They didn't get the second goal. Sporting had brought on Sherry Artmaladze off the bench, and he changed the game, basically. He scored an absolute power. Well, it was a great goal. He just drove and smashed it in from about 20 yards with about 12 minutes to go, made it 1-1. And Waker and the home lot were stunned. They were like, "Oh my goodness, we're level now. What's happened?" There's like caught out, and and then it was. I mean, at that point, it was anyone's game, I think. And then you get towards Waker in, Sporting, and towards as his game was getting towards stoppage time, and just into it, Sporting missed 3 golden chances to win it. You're thinking, and then Wakem went up the other end into the side netting when they probably should have scored. It was like, what's going to happen next? Is anyone going to win this? And it goes. Yeah. I think it was 3. I think with 3 minutes of stoppage time were added on, but as it turned out, we had about 4 times out of that because of what's about to happen. Sporting Wakem actually. This is the funny bit. I'm probably going on a bit here, but never mind. Wakery had the ball in the box, and Jay Nash, who's returned there this season, looked to be fouled inside the box from behind. Nothing given. Even Steve Clark, the sporting manager, was turning to the linesman and to the Wakery pitch going, "That's a penalty. That's got to be a penalty." So this is. But anyway, they carried on. Sporting went up the other end, and then they won a penalty. This is like 92nd, 93rd minute. So it's literally like you think it's been. No, sorry, this is the 95th minute by now because there'd already been a bit of stoppage. So like 96, 95, 96 minutes, Sporting had got the penalty to win the game. So, but Art Maladzi, seconds after the referee gave the penalty, put the ball in the net. But it didn't count because the referee had already given the penalty. He was going mad. And he came over to the bench, but he was really like, it should be a goal. He wanted spray for his ankle. So anyway, he was supposed to be taking it, but because he came over the bench, someone else took it. I think it was Sam. Oh, what's his name? I'm trying to look at the play. Yeah, Sam Edwards took the penalty, and the Wakering keeper Shamshun made a brilliant diving save and tipped it away. And then Art Maladzi was going even more mad because he thought, it was really funny. But then they said, no, the keeper stepped off his line. It's got to be retaken. And I'm like, what? What's going on? And video evidence suggests he didn't step off the line. But anyway, that's unofficial video evidence. But anyway, Art Maladzi then takes the retaken penalty. I didn't know you were allowed to have a different penalty taker, but apparently you are. And he smacked the ball in the net. This was like 97, 98 minutes by this point. And then there was a bit of a disagreement between the benches. And then while that was going on, there was a melee in the goal mouth.
Really?
And I think, and allegedly, the Art Maladzi, the scorer, had struck the keeper.
Oh, right.
And he got a straight red. So he got sent off. The keeper got booked. And then by this point, it was like we were about 11, 12 minutes into stoppage time. It was ridiculous. It was madness. And nobody knew what was going on. I was like, what is going on? I stopped tweeting by this point. Well, I'm going to tweet after this has all happened because otherwise it's good. Anyway, there was still a couple more minutes played after that, and Sporting had to do a bit of defending to keep Wakering out. So I was thinking, imagine if Waker had equalised now after all that. And then that was it. It finished, and it was crazy. Crazy end to the game. But an amazing win for Sporting on their return to the Senior League. You know, they really weren't. No one expects them to do that. But they're much more organised outfit than they were 2 years ago. But yeah, that was quite a start to the season. Let's put it that way.
I just demolished a packet of Chris listening to that. Honestly, it's perfect cinematic viewing. Yeah,
it's just. Yeah. I mean, that was a scaled down version as well because I could have. There's a lot went on during that. A lot went on in the 105 minutes that happened.
We'll discuss Sporting a bit more in a minute because obviously some of our feature footage features their midweek game. But Waker and Tilbury, would you agree with Ashley about adapting to the Senior League? I mean, same as Tilbury, 1 point, Pete, from 2 games.
I think the problem, so I'm not saying this is the case with these teams, but some of these teams, they come down from step 4 and they think they're just going to hit the ground running and they're going to find it easier, or they're going to win a lot more games. They probably will win more games, but you can't just turn up and win. This is a tough league. There's a lot. We've already alluded to last year when we did the preview. There's a lot of good sides in this division. And it's a very physical division. And being the team that's come down from step 4, a lot of teams are going to raise their game against you. You've like got a target on your back. So, you know, they're not going to find it easy. But, you know, once they get settled into the division, yes, they will probably then start to win games. But it's not going to be an easy run for them. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, would you agree with that, Ashley?
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that. It's it is that bit of an adjustment, isn't it? And if you've dropped down from step 4 into step 5, and you think if you drop down to that level and you think you're kind of promotion candidates, and then get kind of spanked in the first game and a draw in the second, it's going to knock your confidence a bit, isn't it? Confidence of the players. But that's where I think teams can show their character, really. The team will get together. They'll train hard. They'll come back. So those teams that are coming there from step 4, I think, will prevail in the end.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. Let's go have a quick look at the a couple of the other results before we go on to Ashley's featured game. So another side that were relegated in Coggeshall Town lost 2-1 at home to White Ensign. So that was another bump in the road there for a relegated side. Also on Saturday, Barking Club, I know that are very close to your heart, Ashley, beat Buckhurst Hill by 1-0. A late 95th minute winner.
Yeah, it was a very late winner. Yeah. Yeah. 92nd minute. Christian Gimmify, I can't even say his name properly. Yeah. 92nd minute.
It's a bit of a scrambled goal, I think, in the end. Was it? I think I saw on Terry's photos that, it was like a melee in the box. The ball was sort of lying around, and it was just tucked away by someone. But
it kind of summed up the game in general, because it wasn't a very good game by all accounts. But Barking won't care because they got the winner. So
So Ilford lost 3-1 at home to Halstead. Great opening result there for Halstead. We'll come on to your game in a minute, obviously, Ashley. Stanway 0, Holbridge 1. So Holbridge, the only one of the relegated sides to have picked up a result on Saturday. Tough place to go as well. So fair play to Justin and that. And one of the title favourites, Woodford, won 3-0 at Takeley. West Essex also beat FC Clacton by 2-0. Ashley, I know you've got an affinity with Barking. I'm just going to just ask this, and I'm not speaking out of turn because I've got a lot of time for the people at Barking Football Club.
Yeah.
Well, from the outside looking in last season, it looked like the fact that Barking got relegated was a massive shock. That you could feel that one call it. Wouldn't call it a hangover, but it just felt from the outside looking in that the tremors, the aftershocks of that continue way into the season. Could the shock of relegation for the likes of Tilbury and Wade, you've been there, you've seen it, could the same things happen to them in a way?
Yeah, I think the way Barking got relegated for a technicality, it was an off the pitch thing, wasn't it, rather than an on the pitch thing. It was so close in the end, wasn't it? It was. I think if they'd got a point or something, they'd have stayed up. And that kind of thing. I know Rob's. He's got a project going there. I know he's got some ideas about what he wants to do, moving the club forward and that, and to sort of get knocked almost back into step 5 again. Whilst he's trying to build that club, is. It's going to be really difficult for the team all round. I think they brought in another manager, didn't they? I think at that point. And they did moderately well. I think they started off not too well, but came back a little bit towards the end. They were almost 6th or something in the end. Yeah. And then at the end of that season, they won the cup, didn't they? They won I think the Errington Cup they won. So they got a bit of silverware. But again, they've changed the manager again. They've gone for another manager this term. And they've started off not too well at the moment. But again, I think early on for some clubs, it is about settling down again and get going again. And in the second season, down at step 5, hope they can sort of continue to build.
I think it's going to be so tough because, as I alluded to on Twitter the other day, in this division this season, you've got 6 teams who, what as recently as 15 months ago, in the Isthmian North. It's just absolutely crazy. So this is how strong competitive is going to be. Let's go on to your game that you was out on Saturday now, Ashley. Now, you saw our guest from last week, Frenford. They were at Little Oakley. Made a nice long trip up to North East Essex, and fair play to obviously them for that, because it's a long old trip to go. A slightly watered down goals version this time, considering there wasn't 6 to go through. But let's have a look at these. So if you want to take us through these, Ashley, if we can just sort out a second. This is Little Oakley versus Frenford.
Yeah, I remember sort of about half hour in, I was thinking this is going to be the 0-0. I thought not much happening in this game, and then a free ball, I think, got headed on and it got knocked through the middle, and I think that's a good finish there, right in the corner. So
that was just before half time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
So it was quite an important time to score. So.
Yeah. So
I love how them kids behind the goal didn't even notice that a goal had been scored. Yeah.
And it's the second one. That's right. A great finish. Top bins. All credit to it. Really controlled that finish. It didn't lash at it or anything. He knew where he wanted to put it, and poor old people wouldn't get near that pace of that. So
yeah. Now, honestly, how would you say Frenford did for their Step 5 debut?
Yeah, I think they weren't solid enough all round the pitch. I think they were a little bit sitting back, waiting for Oakley to sort of attack them. I wouldn't say they were going there for a draw, but they were very apprehensive, I think, all round the pitch. I actually saw them at a game in pre-season. I went along to the Hadley game. They lost that 4-2, but they played all right in that one. But with this one, it was a bit kind of bit difficult for them, I think. But yeah, I think again it's that settling thing again. You know, they've come up, they did well to win that league last year. It's really competitive, wasn't it, last year, that one? And you know, it again, it's that settling thing, I think, again for Frenford. Yeah,
tough start. That's a tough opening fixture as well for your first game at that level, because Little Oakley will be up there this year as well. They're a good side. They'll definitely be top. They'll be challenging the top 5, I think, as well. Got a good side up there, and they're always well supported, as you heard on that video. So you know they get a very very noisy crowd up there. So
bar 3 kids behind the goal who are completely oblivious to the fact there was a game.
They're a great little club, though. I mean, but for considering the size of where they are, they do really well to. I think they do punch above their weight a little bit, to be honest. They do really well for what they've got. So
yes. Okay, on to Monday night now. Now, this will be an interesting discussion for both of you. So I'll leave you two to discuss, obviously, when I've shared the screen. There was an East London derby at Shea Cricklefield. No, that is not the video that I want. Yeah.
Be careful what you put up as.
No,
that's not on my channel. That.
No. It's
not Ashley Hanson's channel.
It went on to Talk TV or something like that.
My days.
To be fair, that is quite good sometimes. It was an East End derby, Ilford versus Sporting Bengal at Shea Cricklefield on Monday night in front of 180 people. Two of them are sitting right in front of me on this show right now. So I'm going to share the screen. So Ashley and Pete, you can take us through this bizarre East London derby, to say the least.
Unbelievable, wasn't it, Pete?
It was, yeah. I mean, to be fair, Sporting, before this goal, this was a great ball in for Boxall and a good finish by Kadir. I can't remember the guy's second name, but yeah, it was a great finish, a good cross as well from Boxall. But prior to this, Ilford Sporting should have been 2 or 3 up in the first half hour. Tim Pittman made some brilliant saves. But yeah, Ashley, Sporting got caught cold right in the half, didn't they?
They did, yeah. I mean, Sporting should have been ahead, shouldn't they? Really? Yeah. I know Ilford was 2-1 up, 2-0 up, but this was a ball and a half. This
is Boxall again. He created both goals. Yeah, it was a great ball, wasn't it?
Brilliant.
And a great finish by Joe Lilly. And then there were 2 up at half time, and everyone was going, "How are they 2-0 up at half time?" Madness.
But a cracking start, wasn't it, to the second half there?
That's that Armaladze again.
Yeah.
I was saying to Aaron Moore, evening Aaron, he was sitting next to me, and I said, if they score a goal early in the second half, Ilford might fold. And my goodness, did they fold? I felt sorry for Tim Pittman here, the keeper, because this was not a moment he's not want to remember.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Was it a bobble?
I don't know. He just misjudged it. I think he probably took his eye off the ball a little bit, and the substitute had the easiest tap-in, and that was suddenly 2-2, and that was 56 minutes, and then the next 5 minutes were just crazy. And this is a centre half. This is a great run, wasn't it? A great finish.
That was unbelievable, wasn't it? He enjoyed that one.
Yeah. That was 3-2.
He was centre half that bloke.
Yeah, centre half, yeah. And then, and suddenly from 2-0 up, Ilford were 3-2 down, and then just past the hour mark, it was Armaladze again who got another one.
Sherry again, wasn't it?
Yeah, Sherry again. Great little not touch by the forward there, and Sherry was there and had to roll the ball in. At this point, Ilford had just totally fallen to pieces at this point. You're thinking, what is going on?
Yeah, there was no coming back from that one, was there? Really?
And that ultimately, that was ultimately decided the game, because Ilford managed to sort of recover after that, but they probably, thing with Ilford, and they did this last year quite a few times as well. They have periods in games where they just lose concentration and just totally go off the ball for 5 or 10 minutes, and they can see 2 or 3 goals in no time, and you're thinking, where's that come from? And you think that's 2 games they've played now, and they've both at home. They've conceded 7, and they've lost both games, and it must be a bit of a worry for them. And if it wasn't for Tim Pittman, it could have been worse. So, because Sporting should have been probably 3 up in our first half hour. So, but they have lost some players Ilford from last season, and we did say last week that they could potentially be ones that will struggle a bit this season. But on the other hand, Sporting are showing in the first 2 games that they're going to going forward. They're a dangerous side when they got a lot of attacking options, and when you got your centre half running through and smashing one in as well, it's just like blooming hell. It's just, they are. I think they're surprising a few people already this season with how well they. Even there was Lee Michelle and Ash, the Essex Senior League chairman, vice chairman, and media guy, were sitting in front of me, and even they were saying, they're definitely not the same side that left it. I said, no, Steve Clark's done a really good job there, because he's really got them organised and solid, and like they got a structure which they probably didn't really have when they went down last time. And they're definitely a side that will cause you problems. That's for sure.
And again, I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet. This is mainly for Ashley. Last week on this programme, I did say as well, historically, Bengal have been a bit of a bogey team for Great Wakering.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised they actually went and got that result, and I'm not surprised by Sporting's start, to be honest. They have done really, really well, and 6 points out of 6 for promoted side.
Yeah.
I mean, for any promoted side, it's brilliant. 6 points out of 6, you can't ask for more than that, can you?
No,
unless
exactly.
you're Norwich in the Premier League. Sorry, Pete.
I mean, if you get 6 points in a season, it'd be. No. There was a worrying injury for Haidara, the keeper, at the end. He got a head injury. I think he was concussed. Personally, I think he was concussed, and he should have gone off. But he stayed on. He sat down 3 times, and I was thinking, you got to get the guy off. And he wasn't. He really didn't look that well. So I was. Again, that comes to the head injury thing. I think sometimes you just got to, hopefully he's all right, because he looked a bit groggy at the end when they sort of took him off. So hopefully he's fine. But
I know Steve Clark.
He's a great keeper. He's a really good goalkeeper. He's done really well in the first 2 games. So
I know Steve Clark and Matt Gill really shored them up defensively in the second half of the Furlong and South campaign last season.
Yeah, they did.
But I think the opening 2 games for Sporting Bengal have shown your typical, forget 2 seasons ago, your typical ESL Sporting Bengal can shock the bigger teams in the league. They score goals, but they also leak a few as well.
The other thing with promoted sides, they can be dangerous because they're on a winning. They're on that high. They're used to winning games. They're used to doing well. And they'll take that through to the next season, and they can sometimes carry that through. So, it'll
be interesting when they eventually do lose a game, how they'll react to that.
I mean, they're going to lose a game. Everyone's thing is, I was looking at the senior league. There's only 3 teams with 100% record already. We've only had 2 games, it's going to be a. I mean, more than one person said to me they reckon the title winners are the lowest points total. Some time,
because 100%.
So many teams are going to beat each other this season. I tend to agree with that as well. So.
Yeah, let's go through quickly the other games from midweek now. This is what I mean. I mean, role reversal from some of the Saturday games. This is one exactly. We kind of alluded to it already. Tilbury 0, Waker 0 in the battle of the relegated clubs. Coggeshall 1, Takeley 4. So Coggeshall struggling in their first few games. In a Redbridge derby, it was Frenford 2, Woodford 2. I'm really pleased with Frenford for that, and I think that kind of shows that they can compete at this level, because Woodford are a really good side at this level, and to take a point out of them is if I was Forbes, I'd be delighted with that.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, go for it.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I think they really did bounce back there with that. I think it's going to be difficult sometimes visiting Frenford in that sort of caged environment with the plastic pitch. Obviously Saturday they were on a grass pitch after a long journey. So, I wouldn't read too much into that Oakley result. I think Frenford will find their feet this season. Yeah.
Obviously Halstead 0, Little Oakley 0, and we'll obviously do the games that you guys were at. So who wants to go first? Do you want to go, Pete, with your game, or Ash with your game?
Go on, Ash.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. It's so we're now going to show highlights of a game at Wadham Lodge on Tuesday, I should say. It was West Essex versus Athletic Newham. Athletic Newham, who come off the back of that fantastic win over Tilbury, and then West Essex, who beat a fancied Clacton, you could say as well, 2-0. So this is how this game went. So Ashley can talk us through it. Go.
So again, this was very early. This is 3 goals in 15 minutes, I think. So West Essex were playing it around. Newham looked like we're trying to settle, but I think defensively they got a bit shook up, really, a bit. I think that was just on the floor. Looked like a away. The keeper's right. 1-0, and that was. I think that's the first few minutes.
Second minute, that one,
yeah. And then the second one. The keeper got an hand to this one, but it's a cracking shot. Wilkinson there, the keeper, got got a bit of a hand on it, but flew in the top corner that one. So 2-0, and again, Pete, I think that was about 10 minutes. That one.
Yeah. Well, I remember me and Scott were at the Holbridge game. We were going, look, what's going on there? It was 3-0 in about 16 minutes or something. We're like, blimey.
Yeah, and then West Essex were just playing it around. Goes up in the air there. I think he wins it. Comes back into midfield. Yeah, missed kick there. That was quite key. That missed kick there put him under pressure at the back. There was a save, and then he ran across him there, and cannot he? It was just out of my line of sight. I knew there was something going on.
I've seen them given, but I'm seeing them not given, if you get me.
Yeah. There were a few more like little incidents like that. I wondered whether the ref was going to give a penalty for little clips in the penalty area. Oh. And then this one again defensively, I think it went in the box. The keeper came out, Wilkinson came out, couldn't quite get it there, and the lad did really well. Fell it in the corner, low down. So yeah.
2 people on the goal tweeting away.
What's the game?
And again, nervous trying to play out here. I think eventually they win it back. I think.
Was Kone playing?
He was, yeah. He did play, and he didn't really get. He got 1 or 2 half chances. He didn't look himself, to be honest, in this one. But that's Zikor finishing well there. But no, Rich struggled a bit in that one. I think they marked him out a little bit, West Essex. And that might be the difference. The Tilbury one, obviously West Essex know how Newham play. They've got most of the same players. And maybe that was a little bit of an advantage for them.
And I think as well, I mean, West Essex, there was a few people I've seen on social media after Kwame's departure, they was wondering how they would be. But 6 out of 6, and 2 fantastic results for them.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant start for West Essex. Nice little club down there as well, by the way. But yeah, that's a great start. I think they're second or even top on goal difference, aren't they? I think it's they've both got 5 goal difference.
Romford and West Essex.
Yeah.
You look at they've beaten Clacton at home, who were up there last year, and Athletic Newham, who took Tilbury apart on the opening day. That's not a bad start. I mean, I'll give them so much confidence. But the Athletic Newham first 2 results kind of summed the league up in a nutshell. Because, they go to Tilbury and beat them 3-0 and play them off the park, and then get beat 4-1 at West Essex a few days later. It's just... that says it all, really, doesn't it? It's crazy.
It is.
Me and Scott were going, what is going on? They're 3 down in 17 minutes if he was over there.
And going on to your game.
Going
on to your game, Pete, it's actually the same, you could say. It's like Holbridge, Saffron, Walton. Take us through that.
Yeah, well, obviously, Holbridge just ground out 1-0 win at Stanway, thanks to a Charlie Heatley goal. Walden obviously got beat 5-1. So, but it's a pretty average first half, if truth be told. Holbridge got a penalty on 16 minutes, and Charlie Heatley again. He struck the penalty home, so his 2nd goal of the season. Walden weren't really. Again, you're thinking, Walden are not playing very well. Neither team played that well in the first half, to be fair. But Holbridge just obviously got the penalty. Charlie Cole had a chance, a glancing header, but he headed it straight at Rob Budd in the Holbridge goal. But yeah, half time 1-0, and the way Walden came out the second half, I think Terry Spillane got into him at half time, shall we say? Because he probably wouldn't have been that happy, especially after what happened at Romford as well. And Walden were a different side second half. They came out and created about 3 or 4 really good chances in the first 10, 15 minutes of the second half. Holbridge were being pegged right back. The only time Holbridge got out, they should have made it 2-0 when Ramin. I think all the names are going out of my head. Mill. He was a Whitman Town player. Ramaya Mills, that's his name. Got there in the end. He got clean through, and he's very quick. But he hit the ball straight at the keeper, who still had to make the save, and he made himself big. So it could have gone 2-0 Holbridge. It wouldn't have been deserved because Walden should have been level before that in the second half. Walden did finally get level through Charlie Cole, we all know from Senior League, after a lovely through ball by Milo. His name's spelled Milar. I don't think you pronounce it like that, but that's anyway. It was a lovely through ball for him for Cole to score. And then a few minutes later, Reece Barrett, who scored at Romford, obviously, scored a great goal from outside the box into the bottom corner, and Walden had turned it round. And I'm thinking, all the games I'm watching, the home team are going ahead and end up losing. So I was like, no, because it happened again. Because obviously it happened at Wakery, it happened at Ilford, now it's happening here. But Walden were great value for their lead. They came out a different side second half, and Holbridge really had to hang on to just the one down. But then, obviously, the longer the game went on, Walden started to sort of think about holding on to the 2-1 lead. And the last 5 or 10 minutes, they had to withstand a bit of pressure. And Holbridge missed an absolute sitter in stoppage time. I mean, they somehow poked the ball wide from about 3 yards out. And the ref blew full time when it went off the pitch. So it was literally the last kick, and Walden had just about survived. But great, it was a good bounce back from Walden, considering what happened on Friday, and obviously going behind in this one as well. So yeah, so again, it's a team winning their first game, losing their second game, and vice versa. Walden got smashed in the first game and then won the second game at a team Holbridge side who I expect to be up there this season. So yeah,
madness.
You can't predict it. This is possible. So yeah, that was it was a better second half.
Yes,
Walden will be chuffed with that, definitely.
Yeah, finally, we should from our highlights section this week. It's the solitary goal between Romford and Buckhurst Hill that Ashley viewed last night. So this is going to be very, very brief. So Ashley, you can take us through this Romford versus Buckhurst Hill.
Yeah, it's gutting for Buckhurst Hill on this one. It was like the last few minutes of the game. Long throw, it beats the first sort of defender, comes over, and who's there but Danny Schilling. Gutted for him a bit, but obviously his old club he scored against.
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
Yeah, that he played for last year. But again, a bit gutting for Buckhurst still there, because that's two games now they've had where they've had
I think they'll be glad to see the back of Maysbrook, wouldn't they? 2 late defeats there in 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, amazing that.
Blooming madness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very late goal. I was going to say, Sonny Shelley scoring against his old club with 5 minutes to go. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
One other result last night. It was a goalless draw between White Ensign and Barking at Burrows Park. Pete, just a quick word on Ensign. 4 points out their first 2 games of victory at Coggeshall and a 0-0 draw at Barking. From an Ensign perspective, they really should be delighted for that, because that is a good return against 2, you could say, decent clubs.
I think with Ensign, I think Blocks and his management, they've done really well since they've come in. To be honest, I think they did really well last year after obviously all the upheaval from before that. And on a shoestring, they don't really have much. They don't have a budget there at all, and the resources aren't probably not the best in the league. But they're hard workers, and the club's a hard-working club. It always has been, and I think they should be proud of the way they're going, and they're getting good results as well. They're taking it to the bigger clubs in the division, and it just shows you hard work and commitment, and team spirit gets you a long way.
Solid start for them. Solid start.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to the Thurland South, which has got stories all of its own. Season started on Friday night with Barking side and James Wakeling getting off to a fantastic start with a 3-0 win at Man Baker. Very impressive start that for James. He should be delighted with that.
Great result. Yeah, I mean, they were very clinical in front of goal by all accounts in this one. Josh Hubble and a brace for Michael James Acarelli. So great start for Barking. So I'm really pleased with James because he was badly treated by Manor and Jerry. I'm not gonna hide behind that. I'm not gonna pick him. You know my feelings on it. And it's his first job since then. And he's only his second management number one job. And I was absolutely delighted when I saw that result. I mean, I felt sorry for Jimmy Donald. May Baker has taken over as first team manager, obviously because I get on well with him as well. But I was delighted for James, obviously after what happened to him at Manor. So that was a really good result as well.
We'll come to Barking side a bit in a minute. Obviously, the Saturday results was because there's two major points we want to discuss in this league. Burnham 4, North West London 3. Hackney Wick 1, promoted Brimstone 0. Harlow 1, Hutton 5 on Saturday. I mean, blimey. Wow. I don't think a lot of people saw that result coming.
No, not at all. But I guess Harlow obviously had the problems last season with the pitch. They're restarting again, almost rebooting, aren't they? But no way I'd have predicted that result at all. Not really seen Hutton, but must be quite good to get those 5 goals against Harlow there. Away game and all.
This for me was result of the weekend across a result of the week ever. I mean, Athletic Newham winning at Tilbury was a good result, but this was unbelievable. And at half time, you didn't see it coming. It was 1-1 at half time. So there's 429 people there. They were all they're all thinking, Harlow are going to start the season and they're going to go on, and because a lot of them think they're going to win the league, and they think they're just going to. And it's like it doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. They've got. You've got to earn the right. You've got to get in amongst. And this is a massive wake up call for Harlow, because Hutton. But the second half they absolutely destroyed them. Stephen Judge got a couple. Sean O'Callaghan got a couple. Drew Keeling got one. They were just unbelievable result. It was a result of the weekend for me by a long way. And I was so pleased for Hutton and the staff and everything, because I've watched them in the Olympian League and and stuff like that. So to see them now where they are and producing results like that against the Harlow side, who not long ago were probably 3 or 4 levels above them. So it's crazy.
It's not more.
Yeah, it's crazy how it works sometimes. Really.
Definitely. Southend Manor 3, Parkview 1 that was played at Holbridge, but we'll come on to all that in a minute. Yeah. But regardless of what's happened this week, important for Manor to get off to a good start there, Pete.
Yeah, massive result for them. I obviously was a bit concerned. Part of year one, them teams are very hit and miss. They can be brilliant one week and not the next. But I was pleased that Manor got a win, because to start the season, after the season they had last year, which was a disaster. If they'd have started off the wrong foot in this one, it might not have been. Obviously as we're going to come on to, they've started off on the wrong foot in other areas, unfortunately. But on the footballing side, there's a great opening day. Definitely.
Yeah. And Wormley 0, obviously Clapton Community 0. Tuesday's results: Enfield Borough 1, Parkview 0. North West London 1, St Margaret's 4, and Newbury Forest 1, Clapton in the Community 4. Wednesday, it was Basildon Town 2, Tower Hamlets 0. It's an eye-catching one. Clapton 1, Brimsdown 3. I did say last week that Brimsdown and their management team have got, and Junior have got it in, have got capabilities of doing some bits this season. And I think that result just epitomises why they could have a successful season. Ashley?
Yeah, Brimsdown, obviously they dropped out of it, didn't they? They've just come back up again. Clapton has come down, so it's one of those scenarios again, isn't it? So yeah, that sounds like a really good result from them. Whenever I've seen Brimsdown, they've been solid all round the pitch. And maybe some of the ability sometimes in the games, maybe been a bit unlucky, but to actually win that one, that's a really good start from.
Definitely. Important result for Harlow, bouncing back 1-0 away to Dunmow. That is a tough place to go, and it's a good team. So after that, Harlow really needed that result, so fair play to him.
Do you know what? Sorry, I was just quickly say, do you know what? That 5-1 home defeat might be the best thing that happened to him. Because sometimes you need a wake-up call like that to fire into life again, because they probably were not expecting that. So it's given them they've probably refocused now and gone, right, we've got to do this right. And, they've come and they've managed to get a win, which will give them a bit of confidence now, I would have thought.
It will do. Now, this is one of the reasons we picked result midweek or as one of the options. Hackney Wick 2, Burnham 3. Hackney Wick were 2 up at half time, and I think with like 20 minutes to go, and then Burnham come back to win 3-2. So amazing result there for Burnham. Mayhem Baker 1, Cannonswood 2 in the park or a Parkside derby.
One
of many of the Parkside derbies. And obviously we are going to go on to the game that Pete and Scott were at last night, which was Hutton versus Barkingside. But the results of the poll are in. We asked you early just before we went on air tonight your result of midweek. So here we go. With 57% of the votes, the result of silly me, I should give you the 4 choices if you've been listening on the radio, shouldn't I?
No, we don't know what you're talking about.
Right, so 2 games each from so as well as result of the weekend, we'll bring you the result of midweek. 2 games each from each division, and you vote for that. So the games were Holbridge versus Saffron Walden, 2-1 to Walden, obviously. West Essex 4, Newham 1. Clapton 1, Brimsdown 3. And Hackney Wick 2, Burnham 3, because of what I just explained. And the winner with 57% of the vote was West Essex 4, Athletic Newham 1. So that is the result of midweek.
And I'd go with that. That would have been my choice, I reckon. Yeah, considering how Newham did on the opening day as well.
Yeah, definitely. Pete, you and Scott, along with many others, including one of my friends, was at was at Billericay last night for Hutton versus Barkingside. 2 sides who had really impressive opening days. So take us through it. We haven't got any highlights this one, I'm afraid. But
no. So I don't do that. I just take photos. I can't watch a game, tweet, take photos, and do video. I mean, I can't. I'm good, but I'm not that good. But no, obviously Hutton. We've just obviously gone on about their unbelievable start to the season. Barkingside as well. Both teams had really good away wins on the opening in their opening game. So this was built well until previous night. It was first against second after one game. It was second against fourth by the time the kickoff came around. Anyway. Barkingside should really have been in front. They missed 2 or 3 good chances. It just wasn't as good as they were in front of goal the previous game. They were wasteful in this one. So they probably could have been 2 or 3 goals up by the time Hutton got in front. And it was 2 minutes into stoppage time in the first half that they took the lead. It was a very scrappy goal. Andrew Webster hit a shot that was saved by the keeper, and eventually Dylan Jones managed to force it in off the post from about 6 yards out to make it 1-0. And that was literally the last kick of the first half. So Hutton were 1-0 up. Barkingside had 2 or 3 good chances second half as well, but they were wasteful, couldn't hit the target. And with 4 minutes to go, Hutton sealed the game. Steve Judge, who got 2 goals in the 5-1 at Hutton, he swung a free kick into the box, which originally was given the other way, but after the linesman had just spoke to the referee, they changed it to the other direction, which frustrated Barkingside a little bit. And I think they weren't really concentrating. The free kick got swung in, and one of the Hutton players went for it in the box, didn't connect with it, but I think it might have put the keeper off. because the ball then went straight in the goal in the opposite corner from the free kick. So it was two goals that Barkingside probably should have avoided as well as they missed several chances of their own. So Hutton weren't at their best, but they still won the game 2-0, which is a good sign. And then Barkingside. The other unique thing I saw is one of the Barkingside substitutes got a yellow card, a sin bin, and a red card within a minute.
I've heard about this.
Never seen him manage that. He got booked for the decision that led to the goal, because he was still moaning about it, I think. Right. And then he was moaning, so he got sin binned, and as he was standing on the side of the pitch, he carried on chirping at the ref, and the ref went over, right, here's a red card, off you go.
I've heard about this. Yeah.
So that was I bet you've heard about it, but yeah, so that is pure frustration, because Barkingside probably felt they should have got something from the game. But
put it this way, your version was a lot cleaner than the version I heard.
I can imagine the version that you got from a certain other person wasn't as clean as that. Yeah.
Yes.
So it was a frustrating night for Barkingside. But to be fair, James in the clubhouse after was very philosophical about it. He says, you're going to win games, you're going to lose games. You know, it's just part and parcel of it. They created enough chances to win the game, but they just couldn't take them. So, and manager Matt Singh said, you know, I mean, he's still he wants it to be perfect. I said to him, "You still won the game." He said, "Yeah, I know, but we should have played a bit better." But, you know, he'll be happy inside that they've won two. They've won 2 games and scored 6 and conceded 1. You can't start your senior football life much better than that. So, Hutton had to dig in, but they got the result, and that's all that matters. So, yeah. But I think both sides. I mean, Barkingside looked quite a decent side, actually. So I think they'll be all right this year, and I think Hutton will be fine as well. So
definitely,
What was it?
Just quickly, before we go on to, obviously, we'll probably go over just over 9:30, to be honest. Just the results in the west of the region, in the Spartan South Midlands Premier teams that we cover.
Yeah.
Arlesey won Cockfosters 0 on Tuesday night. Biggleswade United 1, Stansted 1. A solid point there for Stansted. That's a good result going that way on a Tuesday night. And then in kind of regional derby last night, FC Romania 3, Sawbridgeworth Town 1. So you could say FCR
game, that wasn't it?
Yeah, FCR. I know FCR making a bit of a statement on the return to Step 5. You could say.
Yeah. Well, Yonat's back, isn't he?
They'll be resurgent.
And I think they're gonna reset and go again. I think they'll have a good season. I think they've gone through a bit of turmoil the last few years, but I think they're now back to how they were before. Yonat's back in charge, and they've got some good players, and I think they'll be a tough side to play against this year for sure.
100%. And hope also good luck to Cockfosters and Sawbo as well. There's one football club, though, in the region that I feel really sorry for this week, and for a variety of reasons. And it's mad. It's for the same reason. Benfleet Football Club, Alex Salmon as well, their manager. Their game against Clapton on Saturday at the Terence Macmillan was postponed because no lines were painted on the pitch. And then their game at Southend Manor on Tuesday was postponed because the pitch wasn't ready. And it's actually not the first time a game's been called off. There was a third game with pitch issues called off this week, which was FC Clacton and Stanway Rovers. I'm going to come on to my little piece about that in a minute. But for Benfleet, I mean, I feel so sorry for Samo, for Alex, Pete, because he must be tearing his hair out. I mean, how can these situations be allowed to happen? It is beyond belief.
I'm tearing my hair out for him. I mean, it's just, the thing is, you build up for a season, you get all the pre-season done, you get to the league, you want to start, and then this happens. I mean, I've said, it's well documented what I've said about the Terry Mack over the last few years, that it's an absolute, I can't say what I want to say about it because I'll get.
It's after 9 o'clock now, so you might get away with it.
I'm not going to because it's not yet. But it's it's not senior standard. It's not up to standard for senior football. I don't know how that ground's still allowed to be in step 5, let alone step 6. I mean, Athletic Newham play there, don't they? The thing is, this has happened more than once, and other times teams have turned up and they've had 5-a-side pitches marked out on there. I mean, it's like it's comical. The thing is, and I do feel sorry for the clubs because, you know, I've seen a lot of negativity and some horrible things said towards Clapton in the last few days. And like, they pay. I mean, yeah, mate, I don't know what's gone on, but I mean, the fact that the Newham Leisure or Terry Matt didn't know there was supposed to be a game there. I mean, how is that even possible? You know, these teams pay good money to rent these pitches out. You expect somebody to mark them out, but
or communicate one or two.
It's thing is, I'm not surprised. This is the thing about it, because it's happened loads of times before.
This is the issue. Now, Pete will remember the scenario I'm going to tell you very, very, very well indeed, because I think he was still at Southend Manor at the time. About 6 or 7 years ago, Newham, the original Newham, who were London APSA, they were playing at Terence McMillan, and because of certain things, basically, they were told they had to leave there because the ground was unsuitable for step 5 football.
It did.
They had to play home games at Southend Manor, quite a few of them on a Sunday, because Steve Robinson offered to help them. So they were playing up there on quite a few home games, and Pete will remember we was all told, that the ground's never going to be used again, where it's not good enough for step 5. Then I've been umming and ahhing whether to call out this person for saying this, but I've decided I won't on this occasion.
Yeah, probably best not to. Yeah.
A certain person, Pete knows exactly who I'm talking about, turned around and said that obviously that's going to happen. And then, when was it? 5 years ago, Haringey and Waltham Development went to play there before they changed over to become the new Woodford. They were playing at Terence McMillan, and if that person wants to say that never happened, etc., 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 they know who they are. They are lying about that, because I remember going over there with Tower Hamlets in my last year there before Haringey and Waltham Development changed to Woodford. That ground was allowed back in step 5. I think it was 2017. I think 16 or 17. Just 3 years or 2 years or whatever it was after Newham had been kicked out. We was told, weren't we, Pete? There's been upgrades to that ground. What upgrades?
Well, the only upgrade is the little wooden hut that's supposed to be the turnstile, and that's never. No one ever uses it. So the problem, the flip side to this is there's lack of facilities in that area, football ground wise. So there's too many teams. There's not enough grounds. So in some ways, they've probably thought, maybe we should allow somebody to play here because at least they've got a ground to play at. It's not ideal, but it really shouldn't be. They really shouldn't be using it at that level of football, unfortunately. But the problem is there's a lack of facilities, and the teams don't have places to play, and you can't play three or four teams in the same venue, because it's going to get to a point where they just can't. There's not enough days in the week to play it, and of course you have athletics there as well. So it's the same as Mile End, isn't it, Adam? And you well know about Mile End and the athletic problem as well.
Don't even go there.
This is the problem is there isn't anywhere to play, so it's kind of it's sort of it's been a rock and a hard place, but it's not right what's been going on. It's been terrible, isn't it? So.
And Benfleet, obviously, again, same issues with Southend Manor. Southend Manor's pitch. I mean, I'm not that. Listen, Pete, I know your views on Southend Manor, and you could probably talk about this until end of next season.
I could have done my own 2 shows today on the different things I've gone through.
But there was another game that was called off because of pitch issues earlier this week, and if you see a lot of what I'm going to say is, if you see where I'm coming from, and it brings me back to a point I made earlier when Chris was on the show talking about programs and the attitudes of football. You've seen this happen at this level. There's been other teams that have do it. Now, Luton have had a bit of a situation. Bristol Rovers have come out today and said they've had a bit of a situation. There's been one or two other clubs that have been documented because of pitch renovation or this or something have been asked to do. Obviously, early. I think there's a couple of clubs at higher levels that are having to do the same. I'm not going to name them clubs, but the window that you've got from the end of your season, your last home game, to your first game of the season. Surely that is plenty of time to either sort what you've got to do out or your pitch out. And in my opinion, it is not good enough. And this is what I mean by attitude starts at the very, very top. Now, certain people are going to look at, well, Luton have got, from the Premier League to call their game off, or this club are doing this and that. And it's a bit like the refereeing thing. It shouldn't be starting, this new refereeing approach, it shouldn't be starting at grassroots. It should be starting at the very top, because that's where the attitudes are picked up from. And clubs are going to think, because so-and-so do it, because someone do it in this league, because so-and-so do it in this pro league, all the attitudes are all wrong. And it needs to start from the top down, not from the bottom up. And if I'm not right, listen, I'm not having saying the Premier League or the Football League should clamp down on these. Well, they should clamp down on these clubs. But if they had a more stern approach to these teams, maybe grassroots clubs would think, well, we won't get away with that. Rant over.
Got out of your system now.
No, but do you guys see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I think with the Terry Mack, there's been a couple of incidents over there that you said, and there was one game last season that I went over there. I took my daughter over there, Daisy, and she was getting ready for the game, and we got up to the turnstile. We saw Ross come across, was Clapton manager, and it was like game off, and basically it was goose poo on the pitch that called the ref had called it off because there was goose poo on the pitch. Hopefully I can say poo after 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot worse you could say, trust me.
And this time around, I think Terry Mack was more about the white lining of the pitch, wasn't it? I think, than the actual surface this time. But they're having multiple problems, and there's obviously a systemic issue there in that sort of looking after the facility and making it available for people. And I think, as you said there, that we all know the dates, don't we, when the season's going to start. We've probably got players out there at Benfleet that have probably changed their holiday dates to fit in with the season. Yeah. And, it's just a bit of a total mess for them. And I think, as you say, it's not particularly Clapton that's causing the problem. It's the facilities, isn't it? The people that manage the facilities need to get better. But that Southend pitch, I saw the pictures, and it looked like somebody was trying to dig a pond out or something. It wasn't even halfway ready, was it?
I thought they were in the park by the lake.
Yeah, it wasn't even close to being ready. No. Really, I saw.
No, they ain't ready for ages.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure what's going on there, but. Yeah, it does need sorting out. I sort of agree with what you're saying there.
Attitude, it comes from as I've said, it comes from the top. And if these top clubs are going to do it, it's going to feel like we've said with programs, like I said with refereeing, and like everything else you pick up on these days, it filters down from there. Clubs and etc. I think they're going to get away with it, and it needs to stop. It needs to start from the top down. Yeah. And as much, and Pete, I know Luton means a lot to you, and I completely understand that. Yeah.
All I'll say on the Luton situation is very unique because, I mean, it's not often you get a team like them getting promoted into the Premier League. And I think the issues they've had, it's nothing to do with the pitch, obviously. This is different. It's sort of media. It's having enough media and it's behind the scenes for Premier League football. I think the problem is they've had to spend a lot of money to redo all this. And I think their issue was if they didn't get promotion and have spent all that money, they may have been in a bit of a financial issue, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. But they obviously waited until they got the problem is they then didn't have enough time to get it up to scratch. But so it could probably be managed better. But I can kind of see why the situation has unfolded as it has. But it still doesn't make it right. It just still doesn't make it right. Don't get me wrong. But I think the looting issue is a unique one. I think so because I mean, how many teams get promoted to Premier League with a ground like that?
Oh yeah, 100.
Yeah.
Nobody. I mean, no one in the history of the Premier League.
Yeah.
Pete, as a former club secretary yourself, Ashley, you've been involved at Barking for many years, so you'll know this from when they was in the Isthmian League as well. And you will both know that we're always told, prepare your pitches and prepare your grounds for the next level, ready, i.e. for a Luton situation. So if that grading is done in non-league from National League downwards, why aren't League Two clubs being told prepare for League One just in case, and so on and so on and so on? Because obviously, I know your point, but obviously Luton's ground wasn't clearly not prepared for the Prem.
My only issue with that is there's a lot of clubs that are never going to get promoted, and they're probably thinking, why do we have to spend all this money when we're not?
There's that side as well.
I can see the logic, but there's a lot of clubs out there that are struggling to put money together, even in Football League, as we well know. So spending additional money on stuff they probably think they don't need is the reason why they probably wouldn't agree to that. But I can see the logic of doing that as well.
Definitely. Okay, well, rant's over. We're going to finish the show now. The last 15 minutes. We are going to go a bit over because obviously we've had so much going on this week. But yeah, we will go and have a look at the fixtures for the week ahead, and I'm going to bring these up and for you now. It's the return of everyone's favourite cup competition, and no, Pete, I'm not talking about the FA Vars it's the FA Cup. Yes, Pete's absolutely delighted with that. So that obviously, FA Cup, greatest cup competition in the world,
best part of the competition.
Best part of the competition. It starts this weekend, not in November. It starts this weekend. Yeah, exactly. So here are the fixtures involving teams in our part of the world this weekend. So for those on YouTube, there we go. So for those obviously watching on YouTube, they're the fixtures. It starts tomorrow night, as we can see, with Stansted versus Stotfold. That'll be a tough one for Stansted against Resurgent Stotfold, who've been promoted. Now, do you know what? There could be a bit of a upset or a cup set, as they like to call it here. Woodford versus Hertford, Ashley. I really fancy Woodford in that one. I really do.
Yeah, it's going to be. I'll tell you what, there'll be a good atmosphere over there for that one. That's quite a tie, that one, against Hertford, because looking forward to see what happens with that one.
Okay. On Saturday, you got West Essex versus Crawley Green. Second year in a row that they've played each other, and the third year in a row that Crawley Green have been to Wadham Lodge because they played Walthamstow.
They played Walthamstow as well. Yeah,
I know. Yeah. A bit of a regional affair there. Cottfosters versus Barking, Ashley. That will be an interesting one, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Don't know too much about Cottfosters. I know they were in the S16 League a couple of years ago, saw them play then, so I'm not too sure what sort of an outfit they are this season. But that looks a good tie, definitely.
Personally, I think this is tie of the round. Saffron, it would look like tie of the round to start with. Saffron Walden versus Great Wakering, Pete.
That'll be. Walden will obviously be buoyed from that win in midweek. So Wakering Wakering obviously got they got a draw at Tilbury, which is still a decent result, regardless of the opening day. So I think both teams will be going into that fairly confident, but Walden will have a good crowd behind them, and they'll probably fancy to win that. But it'll be a good cup tie, that definitely.
Sawbridgeworth versus Arlesey Town. Stanway Rovers versus Harpenden. Little Oakley versus Baldock Town. Colney Heath versus Ilford. This is an intriguing one. FC Claxon versus Rail Bedford. Now, Rail Bedford, there's been a lot about Rail Bedford, cryptocurrency and all that. So they're fancy to do well in the Spartan Premier this year. So that'll be an interesting one, I think.
Yeah.
It will be an interesting one as long as Clacton's pitch is okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yes. Okay.
That's the only issue with that one, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
All ESL tie between Halstead and Romford. That again will be an interesting one. Both sides have started. Halstead have started positively. Romford 100% record, so that's going to be an intriguing one. Leverstock Green versus White Ensign. Again, another intriguing one with Ensign have started steadily. FC Romania Tilbury. I think it's going to be a really fascinating game.
Yeah, that's going to be a cracker, that one, isn't it? I think. Yeah, definitely see how Tilbury do there against Romania. You were saying earlier, I think Romania are going to be good this season. So, looking forward to seeing the result of that one and all.
Definitely. Good luck to Thorbsey and Frenford for their first ever FA Cup game away to East Thurrock United. Big fish for Frenford to go to, considering they're in the National League South a couple of years ago. So big game that for Frenford. Buckhurst Hill welcome Brantham Athletic to Roding Lane. Another all ESL tie between Holbridge and Takeley. Two ties at the bottom here that really intrigue me. Sporting Bengal host a Stansfeld side who went very well steadily in the Skeffel last season, Ash, and who are fancied to do okay this year. I know you watched a bit of the Skeffel last year. So do you agree that this could be a really interesting tie?
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting tie, and it's Sporting at home as well. So obviously a bit of an advantage there. Hopefully you can continue their good start and do something there on the day.
Okay, Athletic Newham versus Tooting and Mitcham. Tooting and Mitcham obviously come down from Step 4 last season, so they're in the Combined Counties, I believe. Against Athletic Newham have got Peddering Cup competitions, as we know, though. Yeah,
they tend to really do well in the cup competitions, don't they? I mean, particularly that Vars run they had, but they got quite far for its fourth or fifth round, didn't they? So, I fancy Newham for that one, actually. Again, Tooting are rebuilding. They've dropped down a level, haven't they? So, I think Newham will do well there, I think. Okay.
And on Sunday, 1 p.m. kickoff, as I've for some reason made clear twice. It's in a sense, Essex Senior wise, it's out with the old and in with the new. It's Enfield versus Coggeshall, who've literally swapped places.
Yeah, totally. I'll tell you, I mean, obviously that would be a tough one for Coggeshall. I alluded to it last week with teams like the Senior League teams, these Step 5 teams, mainly most of them against Step 4, is the Step 5 have had 2 competitive games. Most of them have had 2 competitive games, whereas the other teams, this is their first game of the season. So that might have a bearing. I don't know if it will, but they got. You think teams with 2 games under their belts competitively may for, I won't say an advantage, but it might give them more hope than normal.
That's a good point, Pete. Yeah.
That is a good point. No Spartan League, obviously, action because they're all in the FA Cup, and no midweek there either. There are Third and Unchallenged Cup games in the week, but we're going to focus on the league action. So now here's the action that takes place. We've got a full complement of fixtures this weekend. Man Baker Park View kickstarts the weekend tomorrow night, guys. Just quickly before we shuffle onto those other games. 2 defeats from 2 for both. So really tomorrow night is that one of them needs, if the winner really needs to kickstart their season, don't they?
Yeah, especially Man Baker. They had 2 home games and lost both of them. So they really need to start. I mean, I think Jimmy will be desperate to win that game tomorrow, for sure. But as I said, Parkview, one of them teams, they're very unpredictable. So it really depends what sort of Parkview turn up, I guess. But
yes. Okay. For our viewers, here is the games in the Third Island South this weekend. And Hoddesdon start their Step 6 campaign with a trip to James Wakeling's Barking side. That'll be a tough introduction. They lost 1-0, by the way, to Wormley the other night in the charity.
Hearts charity. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Benfleet will finally get their season underway.
Hopefully.
We hope. Yeah. Well, considering the weather forecast,
there's a lot of rain coming, so I'm thinking, but Canvey's pitch is normally quite good with drainage anyway. So
yeah, Benfleet versus Dunmow Town at Park Lane. It's Burnham versus Newby Forest. Cannons Wood against Brimsdown. I think that's going to be an intriguing one, actually. That will be an intriguing one. Clapton Community's first home game at Step 6 will be against St Margaret's-Bury. There's Enfield Borough versus Clapton. And London Derby, Hackney Wick versus Northwest London in Witham.
Yeah.
Yeah. Two of the, what you would say, I think this is game of the day. Two of the pre-season favourites for promotion, Harlow and Basildon, meet in what you could say a Newtown derby in a way, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one will really show us, wouldn't it, what Harlow's got in their tank. So, we know what Basildon can do. Just missed out on promotion, didn't they? That was a bit gutting for them. But, I agree. That's a cracking tie, that one.
Game of the day, I think. Hutton versus Tower Hamlets, and Southend Manor are away to Wormley Rovers, which I think, again, that will be an interesting game because Manor have rebuilt under a good squad under Gary Monty.
For everything that's going on off the field with Manor, they've got a really good... Gary Monty's put a really good side together. So, they will be when they do get playing football, when they are playing football, they will be a match for most teams in this division, I think. But obviously, it doesn't help with the off-field stuff at the moment as well. So if they can just concentrate on playing football, I think they'll do all right this season.
Definitely. Okay, right. Let's have a look at the midweek games in the Essex Senior League. And on Tuesday night, it's you got some cracking old school Isthmian League games
old
here.
School, yeah, I know, brilliant.
Proper old school Isthmian League games.
Yeah.
Barking versus Tilbury at Maysbrook Park or the Lawtech Stadium or wherever it's called this season. Great Wakering Rovers versus Romford. Little Oakley versus Holbridge Sports. Saffron Walden versus Coggeshall. Nice little local derby there between Stanway and Halstead, the A1124 derby. And Takeley versus FC Clacton. So, Ash, pick your game of the day out of those.
Yeah, he's going to pick.
Well, I actually quite like... I know there's got the old Barking too. I mean, there's so many there, isn't there? I don't know.
There's some cracking games, isn't there?
I'm going to go for the Stanway Halstead one because Stanway haven't made a good start. I'm just having a look at the league where Halstead are. Halstead have made a good start, so Halstead are away. So, be good to see how Stanway do on that one.
It's only like 10 miles between the two as well. So it's a local derby. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah,
definitely.
Wednesday night in the Senior League, we've got Athletic Newham versus Friendford, Buckhurst Hill versus Ilford, Sporting Bengal and West Essex, and Woodford versus White Ensign. For the radio listeners, it's already a great start to the season and you're in for some corkers already when Pete Dudley is making them faces for the preview for the 9th of August.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah. That midweek fixture list is unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, Sporting West Essex, that's got to be I'd say I'd pick 4 games on Wednesday. That's probably the one I'd pick out. Although Buckhurst Hill Ilford's obviously a decent fixture as well. But I mean, wow, that's... some early markers there, isn't there? See where teams are, but I mean, crikey, yeah.
I was just about to say, you wouldn't want to predict the scores of those ones. I'm sitting here thinking, which way do I do 3-0 or something?
I'm not going to.
And, but I guess they'll be affected by any replays as well, won't they? Because of the FA Cup.
Yeah, that's true.
I was just about to say that. Ashley took the words right out of my mouth. They are subject to FA Cup replay, so bear that in mind, please, folks. However, providing they all go ahead, now, Pete was saying this earlier, there's only 3 100% records in the Essex Senior League at the moment. It could potentially be 1.
Yeah.
Or none by Tuesday or Wednesday.
They could have all gone by the second week,
Yeah, which...
Well, that says everything you need to know about the league, isn't it, really? So.
Yes. There are Thurlow Nunn Challenge Cup ties this week. Highlights Barkingside, Main, Baker, Hackney, Wick and Holland. There are a few this week as well. So be interesting, obviously, some cup action for them teams. Before we go, Ashley, have you decided what games you're going to go out and watch and film this week? Because obviously, so we can look forward to your great highlights next week.
Yeah, I'm gonna go probably Friday, Stansted. I'm gonna pop up and see the Stansted one. Sunday I'll be at the Enfield one, hopefully. And Saturday, I've got a really supportive family, so I'm going to take them down the coast and we'll go to a game somewhere out of the way, I think, on Saturday. And then I'm going to wait to see what the replays are in the FA Cup before I choose. So that's my sort of plans for the next week.
Okay, fair enough. So we will have highlights of Stansted and Stockfold and Enfield and Coggeshall on the show next week. And obviously, if it's involving one of our region's teams, possibly a Saturday game as well. And obviously, depending on midweek as well. Pete, what's your plans?
Well, I know Saturday. I don't know any other day at the moment because I don't really know what I'm doing in the next 2 hours, let alone next week. So, I'm not in the regional Saturday. I'm going to watch Chalfont St Peter against Wallingford and Crowmarsh.
Shout out to those two teams.
Yeah, because Joshua Keane, who plays for Chalfont, actually said he wanted me to come and cover one of their games to start this season. So I said I'll come and start the cup run there. So that's what I'm doing. I might do a cup game Sunday. I don't know yet. I was thinking about doing a game tomorrow, but I might just go to sleep because I'm tired.
Don't blame you.
So we will see. But I'm Chalfont on Saturday for sure. So yeah, that should be something different. And yeah, I haven't been to Chalfont St Peter's ground probably since the late 90s, probably or early 2000s. So it'd be almost like a new ground for me again.
Yeah, the only reason he's going to Chalfont St Peter is because they're called St Peter. Peter.
Obviously that as well, because the name.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, it's been brilliant. but it's going to be an unbelievable week, and it's going to be an unbelievable season. Ashley, thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you for letting us obviously use your footage during the season as well. Yeah. It'll be really, really handy to use as well. And thanks for being here, and roll on this season because if we're on a roller coaster ride, we haven't even done the clanky bit up the top yet. I mean, God knows, this is going to be incredible, isn't it? And step 7 hasn't even started yet, which we're coming on to next week.
Oh, that begins following week, yeah. So
I know. And next week on Grassroots Football Show, we're joined by our partners, the Essex Alliance League. Rob Parker will be joining us. We'll be looking back at the week's action, and we'll also be looking forward to this season in step 7. So will it be as good as 5 and 6? It always is. It's going to be competitive.
It's going to be mad. It's be more madness to come.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Myself and Pete will be joined by Rob for that next week, and we're looking forward to discussing all of that. And Ashley, thank you very much for being here.
Great. Thank you. It's been great.
Yeah, and also thanks to Chris as well, and for being here. Ian, thanks very much for pushing buttons and sticking with us.
You're welcome. Really good show. Really good.
Excellent. All right. For all the viewers and the listeners, we will see you next week. But for now,